Go sit down. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
you can vote on minutes, we vote.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll give you comments.
You're now live chairs.
Okay? Okay, good evening. Today is September 5th, 2023. Welcome to the Town of Woodfin Planning Board of Adjustment meeting. I'd like to open the meeting at this point and by taking roll. Ms. Gosnell.
Here.
Mr. Deroni. Here. Mr. Hopkins.
Here.
Ms. Overbeck.
Here.
Mr. Young.
Here.
Mr. Hanson. Mr. Hanson will be running late. He's not here right now, but he's stuck in traffic. And Michael Bennett, I'm here. That being said, I would like to ask everybody here to please put your phones on mute or turn the volume down. And let's see. Approval of the agenda. We have to take a motion to approve the agenda?
Well, I think if you're thinking about maybe switching the agenda items, if you want to
Okay.
move the special use permit up first,
Okay.
then this would be the point where you would make a motion to modify that.
Based on the fact that Mr. Hanson is running a little bit late, we're going to switch items 5 and 6, which is the public hearing for legislative and the variance changes.
This the special use permit.
Yes. So I
Yeah.
have a motion to approve switching those.
So move.
Second?
I'll second it.
Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous, approved for that. Has everybody had a chance to look at the previous meetings from July, August, and June?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Ricky, are we allowed to do that in one bulk vote, or we have to do it independently?
Let's just do them independent if that's okay,
Okay.
just for clarity for record for Marie.
So the meeting minutes from July 11th, 2023, do I have a motion to approve, or do we have any questions on that one? I'll ask that. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the July 11th?
I motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
So moved. All in favor?
Aye.
That is approved. August 1st meeting, do we have any questions or concerns about those minutes? If not, do we have a motion to approve that?
So move. I second.
Everybody, all in favor?
Aye.
That is unanimous approved. And the June 1st meeting, which is our training meeting, do we have any questions? I'm sure we do not on that. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So move.
3 for 3. Second. And all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we are complete with the approval of the minutes. Public comment, I don't think we have
I
anybody.
don't think I'll double check real quick. I don't think we have. Do not have anybody signed up.
Okay. Moving right along, unfinished business, we have none. New business, this is where we're going to switch. So we're going to start with the evidentiary public hearing. Is that correct, Ricky?
Yeah, that's correct. So we'll skip on down through the slideshow here. Is that good with applicants? We move y'all up first. I heard you would be okay with that, Dylan. That was one of our questions, like, maybe you don't have to sit to the end. Okay. Okay. And since we have, just to let y'all know, since we have the board's legislative and quasi judicial, one of the alternates for special use permits coming and sitting down, and then they'll rejoin when we get back to the planning board legislative side. So you just kind of show what's happening here and for people at home. All right, so public hearing special use permit.
So Ricky, this was a permit that, there he is, Mr. Hanson is.
Yeah. You can have a seat because we're getting ready to the.
So we can let the record reflect that Mr. Hanson is here tonight.
Okay.
And we'll still continue what we're doing. This is a previously approved, but they're coming in for
An amendment,
Amendment,
correct.
okay.
Yeah. So in February of this year, the Duke Energy was planning to put in a battery storage system here on Riverside Drive, right next to MSD. It was in more of the northwestern corner of the site, and due to some constraints with setbacks and on the ground, they're asking to just move that, flip it to the kind of like southeast side of that substation. So we'll work through this real quickly.
So no change in use, no change, it's just a location of the equipment change?
Yeah.
Okay.
But because it's a substantial change to the site plan, if it was wiggling where they had previously been approved, then we would be like a staff level modification, but because it's substantial change to the site plan, it has to come back for this board to be reheard. So anyway, it's a 4.6 megawatt battery storage facility next to an electrical substation. So just for the zoning map, I believe some of y'all have seen this before, the dark blue area top center is the heavy industrial. That is MSD's property immediately to the north. So our hatched parcel is the subject tract. To the middle of the screen, that light blue color in the middle, that's actually the French Broad River. And then immediately to the south, you see an R10 area, which is mainly a cemetery and a non-conforming commercial parking lot. The HI on the lower left and CS is the River Mill down there, that complex, and MSD's headquarters. So here's the aerial. Again, the center of the screen is our subject tract. You see the parcel map. You can kind of see the Craggy Dam there, the white line of the water overtopping. And you see MSD again to the north, and that cemetery to the south, southeast. And then, of course, River Mill Bluffs. So this site plan is a little bit wonky, but we're looking up is south on this one. So you're looking toward Elk Mountain Road as we're standing looking up. And the substation's at the bottom in kind of that foreground. So if you imagine that, that's the substation looking to the south with the battery storage facility to the southwest of the substation. And then to the right, you'll see the driveway. You'll see some pictures here. You'll see the asphalt drive. That's the driveway from Riverside Drive that climbs the hill. Just reused the applicant's exhibit from before. This is kind of the way they basically look. Is that correct, Dylan? Is that? He's nodding yes. Kind of a typical battery storage. And just for comparison's sake, you see the round circle. That's the approximate area of the previously approved battery storage facility. The black square is the approximate location of this relocated or modified site plan. Okay, here's a little bit better site, gives you a better orientation looking east. So again, you see Elk Mountain Road to the right, Riverside Drive's at the bottom across, and then MSD's far left. So I think it gives a better idea of how the site flows on this picture. Let me know if I'm moving too fast, but it's...
The original spot was in the in the lower left.
Yeah, lower left. So you see the substation proper. If you look
Yeah.
just to the left of that, kind of where that green, almost like question mark look, that was the approximate area. So this will be actually further from the road.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I remember
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
It's closer to the residential areas though, right?
A little bit, the mountain village to the right, but you've got that creek and you've got some multiple power lines crisscrossing the site.
Where's the former golf course on that?
That would be straight up to
Up,
the north,
okay.
and so I can back up here.
So if that becomes a housing area, it would actually be farther from that, right?
It's probably about a little bit, it's maybe technically a little bit closer, so,
Is it?
Ms. Everbeck, so you see the big parcel to the far right, I'm gonna point to the group.
Okay.
This parcel
Yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah. That's it, okay.
That's the former golf course
Yeah,
track.
yeah,
So there's a little snout that comes out, that's Mountain Village.
Technically, I said that's not even buildable, that little snout is called, because there's train tracks, there's a creek.
Yeah.
Elk Mountain Road, so there's,
Yeah, you can kind of see right under that snout kind of parallels Beaver Dam Creek. So it's pretty rugged right in that area. And there's existing trees and landscaping, I should say existing tree and vegetation. And the applicant can provide more, there's certain positional things that they have to be within, there's clearances on the substation, clearances on the power lines, what I understand. And so I think Dylan's more qualified to explain that as far as their locational needs on the site specifically.
If I remember, there
Yeah.
was, when it goes against a residential, even though it's a snout piece,
Yeah.
it's still required
A tr-
vegetation coverage, but it looks like there is naturally right there.
Yeah, and that area, just because it's the property, it still was required, so that was still required at the time. Under the previous approval, that vegetation was required to be retained. It's just the site's moving, so it still would be required, that 20-foot setback in vegetation
Okay.
for screening. Okay, so here's some familiar pictures, but this is looking south from that driveway as you're remember we talked about the driveway to access the substation. So I'm looking south, that is MSD's headquarters, looking back at Elk Mountain Road. Not figuring this away, but this is looking kind of up toward the now proposed site. Again, looking east, you can kind of see the overhead utility lines are going everywhere in this location. Again, I'm standing on Riverside Drive. That looks immediately west. Beaver Dam Creek is to my left here, and the French Broad River. That's looking up the asphalt driveway to the east-northeast toward the substation. Looking north on Riverside Drive, that's some MSD buildings on the left, and then in the far distance in your view along the road is the sewage treatment plant proper. And there's some findings. I'm going to stop there. I know that's kind of quick. I don't want it to seem like it was rushed, but it is, the structure is not habitated or occupied by a person. It's just, a couple battery systems that are on the ground from previous testimony that we had, but there's nothing occupied, so there's no real parking requirements, not manned. So it was pretty straightforward, and it's zoned heavy industrial, so any type of substations or telecommunication facilities are required an SUP approval by this board regardless of the zoning district in this case. Any other questions for me? And I'll let the applicant come here and speak. Dylan, if you want to come up, or would this Bob, you want to? Okay, we'll let their attorneys. And Bob, if you'll just state your name for the record so Marie can capture that. Oh yeah, we do these swearing some folks. I keep forgetting special use permit. So forget we skipped out.
Oh, okay.
Special use permit, yeah. We'll just raise your hand. Dylan, you want to speak too?
I can.
Let's go get you sworn in too.
Okay. Do you want to raise your right hand? Both of you? Or all of you? Do you solemnly swear the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. Okay, you're in. I don't think I'm allowed to put this, so hope you got it anymore.
Thank you, and good evening, board members. My name is Bob Ost. I'm with the Asheville law firm of McGuire, Wood, and Bissett. Pleased to be here with you today, and at least for me, to see some familiar faces. I worked for a long time with Shannon Tuck, your town manager, when I was with the city of Asheville. I want to thank Ricky for his thorough presentation, and he said a lot of the things that I would ordinarily say, so this is going to be very short. We do have a short presentation, and we'll demonstrate compliance with the standards that apply to public utilities in your code. Of course, as Ricky mentioned, this property is familiar to some of you because a similar project was approved back in January of this year, I think, with the new facilities on the northwest corner of the property. But field conditions and some uncertainty about the location of the property line have made it more practical to move the new facilities further to the south. As Ricky pointed out, we inquired about doing this administratively, but it was just too big a change for him to authorize on his own. So we're back here. And as you'll see, the information is essentially the same, and we'll go through this quickly and try to respond to any questions that you all might have. And that's all I had to say, but I would like to bring up Jennifer Bennett with Duke, who will talk briefly about where this project fits into Duke's plans, introduce herself, and then Dylan will come up and give you some detail about the site plan that Ricky hadn't already covered. Thank you.
Good evening, and I'll be very brief. I know Dylan has a few notes to make, but I really wanted to take the opportunity to introduce myself. I'm the new Government Community Relations Manager for Duke Energy in the Woodfin and surrounding area, so a 6-county region. So I look forward to working together, and I appreciate the opportunity and your continued attention to our application for the Riverside battery storage project, and really note that it allows us to continue to improve our delivery of reliable and resilient power to the residents of this community. So again, I thank you for your attention. I think Dylan's going to share the details and the technical details of the project, and then I'm happy to answer any questions about community benefit or how it fits into our broader energy goals. Thank you.
What was your name again?
Jennifer Bennett.
Okay, thanks,
Yes,
Jennifer.
absolutely, thank you.
Evening, board members. As I think I remember some of your faces from before, Dylan Stewart with Duke Energy, part of our energy storage development team. Certainly happy to answer any specific questions you have about the project here. Really don't have a whole lot to go over. Just wanted to speak quickly to kind of the rationale for the change in the site plan, first and foremost, and then just mention a few comments about kind of our approach to developing projects, timeline for the project, and kind of next steps. So as you know, the SUP was approved back in February for this project located on the northern side of the parcel. Given some site constraints that we weren't aware of at the time, I'll mention a couple things. Primarily, we were going to have to reroute a distribution line around where the facility was going to go, and as we dug further into the engineering of that, was going to create some spacing constraints and likely some safety concerns from a constructability standpoint. That, in addition to the timeline that was going to be required for a DOT permit, because we would have to create a new driveway onto the property. And there's a guardrail there that would possibly have to be moved. So there was some concern about timing for getting that approved from the DOT and our schedule for the project. So that, and then just in general, the tightness of the space with the setback requirements and the property lines led us to evaluate the southern end of the property, which is where the batteries is shown now in the revised site plan. So it moves the facility further away from the road. We don't have to create a new drive access onto the property. Gives us a little bit more space to operate. There's still transmission lines around that we have to operate around and stay out of the way. But in general, we have more room, and we can still maintain the schedule that we've been working towards. So this project is set to be placed in service in August of next year, with construction likely starting early Q1 of 2024. And you're looking at roughly 12, 15 months of construction time frame from start to finish. That's really all that I wanted to highlight about the project. Happy to answer specific questions or point out anything specific you may have.
I don't have a question, but just a statement. So in the last 3 years specifically, Riverside Drive traffic has gotten extremely busy. So I know you're bringing big tractor trailers and stuff like that. So just for your information, just keep that in mind, because that is a very busy intersection, which I'm going to assume 5-10 years ago it was not, but right now it is very busy, and it gets backed up really, really quick because there's a lot of trucks going MSD and up and down the quarry and stuff like that.
Yeah, thank you. Point definitely noted. That was part of the consideration with the new drive that would have to be created on the other side of the property where we originally were approved. Part of the contingency plan was, if we can't get enough room to pull off of the road safely and unload equipment, could we work with the DOT to get a temporary road closure? And that was not ideal for a number of scenarios, that case in point. So thank you. Yeah.
Where's the energy generated that's going into this power, into these?
Into the batteries. So it's all fed from the grid. So it's not connected directly to a solar facility or anything. The battery charges from the grid and discharges back onto the grid.
I noticed you were kind of taunting the wind and solar. Mm-hmm. Will it eventually have those type of energy sources going in, or is all still going to continue?
Not locally here, just with the terrain around, there's not plans that I'm aware of for solar to be physically located on this property. In addition, it's only about 7 acres, so really not enough space to economically site additional solar. I will note, so it's connected to the local distribution grid. And with that, our Woodfin solar facility, just a few miles north, you may know specifically, Jennifer, is going to be online, solar facility that's connected to the same local grid. So not directly connected to solar in the future plans, but certainly part of the local grid, which will have more and more clean energy resources, in the future.
One last question. I'm not that familiar with the storage part of it. I'm trying to learn about solar panels for my home. What would be the worst catastrophic situation that storage area what could happen? What would be the worst that could happen with that?
So pressure, I'll say this first. We take safety first and foremost. We cut no corners at Duke Energy when it comes to safety and reliability of the system. So we take every precaution in terms of factoring in design elements to the system to create as many barriers to a catastrophic event happening. So rest assured, I consider our design and implementation of our battery facilities to be industry leading from a safety perspective. And then more specifically to your question, fire risk is certainly there with batteries. You know, these are lithium-ion batteries, so fire is certainly the most common what you would think of when you think of a risk from a battery. It would be a fire. So what we do to mitigate that best of our ability is ensure that our systems are designed to NFPA requirements, which is the National Fire Protection Association. In addition, we have a very robust system of detection and monitoring devices for things like smoke, gases, so that in the event electrical fire, were to happen, a wire, shorts and starts a fire, the system senses that immediately and cuts the system off to avoid a larger, fire incident. There's also gas ventilation. So if gas were ever to be present that's not supposed to be there, it will detect that and vent immediately. And there are multiple steps that would have to fail before a worst case scenario would occur, which would be gas buildup in the system and then a fire.
Okay. I'm just a little concerned with the situation that happened in Maui. I just wouldn't want to see that. Say we have a drought here. Hope we don't, but we could. I just want to make sure that we're protected as much as we can be.
I'll say in addition, so we have 2 other battery systems here in the western part of the state in operation. One is our Asheville Rock Hill facility, and one is Hot Springs, which is our microgrid in Madison County. Both of these facilities have been in operation for a few years, and the reason I point those out is during the process of building those facilities, there was really detailed training with the first responders so that they were familiar with the system. They understood in the event something were to happen, where do I go? We have a first responder station that's attached to the facility. So there's very robust training and overviews with first responders in the event something were to happen. And they're aware of the system, they know how to operate it, and then remotely we monitor the systems to ensure, if anything were to start looking like it's going the wrong direction, that it gets mitigated immediately and shuts the system down. And that's all monitored remotely from our distribution center.
Thank you.
Do you have a fire suppression system in any of these buildings?
In the battery containers themselves, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're equipped with dry pipe suppression systems. Yep.
Any other questions from the board?
If you don't mind if I ask Mr. Stewart just 1 or 2 questions?
No. Please.
Dylan, you're trained as an engineer, is that right?
Yes.
You described the project, after the initial construction phase, which is Mr. Bennett is going to involve some trouble getting out, is there going to be any traffic to speak of coming in and out of this facility?
No, nothing outside of regular a truck or 2 once a month maybe for checking on the system and routine maintenance. Yeah, nothing on a regular basis or consistent.
And what about any noise emanating from the facility?
So, good question. The noise, the noisiest piece of equipment in the facility is the chillers that have to cool the batteries themselves to make sure they're operating at the most efficient temperature. They put out about 70 decibels at the most in terms of in sound. And that, to compare that to something you may be familiar with, think of your home HVAC system and the noise that makes when it comes on and runs. That's about equivalent to the loudest equipment that would be on the site.
And what about lights?
Lights. So similar to what you see on the substation property, just general housekeeping lighting for safety is the main reason. So minimal area lighting for safety is how I would describe that.
That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, one other thing about, where's it monitored from? Where do you monitor the system, and is that a 24/7 system?
It is, yes. So our distribution operations center is in Charlotte, our headquarters. Everything is managed and operated from there. And then we have local response teams and staff to respond, handle any kind of outage issues or more local support than what's monitored remotely.
Ricky, do we have to open up to anything, or we're good so far? I mean, we don't have anybody here to speak, so.
I mean, you can open up the public hearing for anybody, but we.
There's no one here, so.
There's nobody here, but
Okay.
if you want to go through the formality.
All right, so we're going to open and close the formal hearing, or the public section of this hearing. Any other questions or comments at all?
I'll double check, make sure, but I think we don't have anybody that signed up.
Okay. I mean, in my opinion, basically, we're taking the exact same thing we approved a couple months ago, we're just relocating it, so technically, there's no changes, there's no modifications.
The only person that signed up was their attorney, Mr. Oates,
Okay.
so you don't have
We're
anybody
good.
else signed up.
So from my review of it, it's like that, we meet all of our requirements to the best of my knowledge, because there's no changes in what they're doing. There's no change in use, there's no change in encroachments, it's relocated, but we're still within all the setbacks, so these are our findings.
It's fine, it rolls over to, there's so many, they run over to F, but I'll go back here, let a couple of the members that are newer from quasi judicial, because I think a couple of y'all weren't here on the first round, but this is your first SUP, I think, as a consolidated board.
I'm sorry, you two were not here, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we went through all this stuff and we hit A, B, C, D.
Okay. It probably good practice just to
Okay.
work through, just get consensus. Y'all done a really good job, I think, in the last SUP we had, working through each letter just to get consensus before you voted at the end after F.
So we'll read through this then. When unnecessary hardships would result from carrying out the strict letter of zoning regulation, the Board of Adjustment may vary any of the provisions of the zoning regulation upon a showing of all the following, all four findings must be satisfied. A, the establishment, maintenance, or operation of special use will not be detrimental to, endanger the public health, safety, morals, comfort, or general welfare. I do not see any concerns with that. Does anybody have questions or concerns with A? That being said, B, special uses will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted, nor substantially diminish or impair property values within the neighborhood. We are sitting right between the sewer treatment, the mill, existing substation, a train track, and a state highway. So I personally, I do not have any objections to that. Does anybody have any concerns or objections to that?
And the front golf course.
Well, but that, I do think, the one thing I was interested in was where that was, because there's probably going to be housing proposed for that, which means that would be adjacent to this project. But there's already a project there, so it's not,
Yeah, it doesn't really change the view that's there.
Right.
There's enough power lines above it that they're hiding the whole battery system to begin with.
Yeah, the batteries will look nice.
Yeah.
Power lines.
Right.
Let's see, did B, right? C, the establishment of special use will be in harmony or compatible with its neighbors and generally consistent with the comprehensive plan. Any questions, concerns with that?
I don't think the comprehensive plan, Stephanie's on the committee too, it really dealt with this specific thing. But that golf course area, they are dealing with. I mean, there's going to be plans for that, I think.
Yeah.
And then D, adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary facilities have been or are being provided. That shouldn't be a no-brainer.
Well, I
because they're
think
not
that they
changing.
made the right call in not having to go and
Yeah.
add another driveway, you know.
I will say I wasn't aware that you were putting a new driveway. I don't remember seeing that in the last one, so I'm glad we're keeping the same one. There's enough driveways on Riverside Drive as it is. E, adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide ingress, egress, so designed as to minimize traffic congestion on public streets.
Correct.
We're good. I mean, I worked 33 years for Public Service Electric and Gas in New Jersey in a substation department, so there's very minimal traffic. Once this thing is up, it's gonna be busy when they're building it. Once it's up and done, I'm sure it'll be peace and quiet. F, the special use shall in all other respects conform to the applicable regulations of the district of which is located. I don't have any objections. Does anybody have any objections or concerns or questions? That being said, we have met, the project has met all of the items that they have to meet. Ricky, did we have
There's no recommended motion.
Oh, no, okay, that's the other one, okay.
Go ahead and make a motion.
Okay, so would anybody like to attempt, would one of the new members like to attempt? You don't have to.
I think
Just
it
throwing
should
out-
be
or
the
someone
old
else-
members.
Chris or anybody, would you like to attempt to do this? Because you have to kind of incorporate the package.
Well, if we, let's see, I'll make a motion to approve the proposed amendment for the special use permit by Duke Energy Progress in accordance with the Woodfin ordinance 5477 to adjust the location of the battery storage system located at 2115 Riverside Drive. And we have determined that this meets all 4 criteria required by the town of Woodfin for this property zoning development.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, do we have any questions on the motion? If not, we'll take a vote at this point. All in favor? Aye. Against? No, so it's approved and unanimously approved. Good luck.
Yeah, thank you. Nice
Thanks.
presentation.
Just keep our ears down.
We do anticipate it not. Because to the board,
I think the fire risks we have all over Woodfin are huge.
I get elected to the board, it's true.
yeah, you can move forward, yeah.
It's not working, when it's tested.
Yeah, it'll probably, it'll basically be.
We're talking about something else.
I know, but they're on, we're live.
We did live.
I'm glad you brought up the safety
Thank you for
concern,
reminding
because
us.
we see the Tesla cars burning up, and these are,
All right, as we transition back to our legislative,
Okay.
we'll have our other 2
Yes, sir.
regular planning board members that do legislative to rejoin the board. Let me go see while everybody gets settled, see if I got all that printed out.
hi, welcome back. Camper's electric truck. Not good. Cool.
There's another ADU, if anybody wants to look at this one, that did actually print, there's another height. I did get,
Maybe you want to hide.
There's a,
and then there's Mountain
Yeah, I
Village.
we can share that here, then we're good.
I can get, do I need to get another copy? I'll put it on the board, the TVs as well.
We have one copy of the page that had the proposed motion. That would be good to have.
This here,
No.
more detailed than that. you're talking-
There was one that I believe Ricky included with your township review that had a proposed motion for this next.
Yes, I do have a slide for that.
Okay, as long as someone here can read it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we do have that.
That's fine. It might help in the end.
Yeah, we'll help in the end. And so here's proposed steep slope, non-conforming section. And I'll bring it up on the screen as well.
That's great.
I'll just, and we can kind of share them down at this end here.
And just let you know that we are working on that iPad versus laptop for y'all, so we hopefully will have some information by the next meeting, what type of electronic device we'll have for y'all, so that we can have something to look at stuff.
That would be helpful because, again, I was going to print this out, but it was like 27 pages. And I didn't want to print it all out at home,
So
so
that we also be able to bring with you and have.
that would be wonderful.
Hopefully we'll have that kind of sorted out by.
I shouldn't have, but I did.
On that one.
My printer doesn't print two-sided, so it was 49.
Yes. Bigger is better, Ricky?
Yes.
I'm getting old.
Yeah, and it's, I think something with a touch screen capacity or something helps, if you can't zoom in or roll in. So does anybody have any questions in general before I kick off into the presentation? Sometimes hearing questions first, I can not answer directly, but I can work through the presentation. Sometimes I like to hear what questions are initially, and then I can make sure I touch on that before I keep driving with the spiel.
Just so we're on the
So
same.
you want us to tell you what our questions are up front? So
Yeah, sometimes I like to hear questions up front, so.
Can I, and before you ask, just in general,
Yeah.
so these are proposed changes to our
Zoning code, yes.
zoning code.
Yes.
We are going to vote on this, approving this, and then it still goes before council.
Correct.
to be- We're
Yeah.
we're just recommending it or not recommending it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Good.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, are you starting with accessory dwelling units? I mean, it seems kind of specific, that's why, given the fact you're proposing that it apply to all of the residential districts, I was wondering, though, if where they have water and sewer, and have wells and septics, that you could do that, because there are a lot of regulations over, how many people can live in those, and that's not referenced at all.
No. So I'll just answer that question,
Okay.
because there's R10, right? We have R10, we have areas west of the river that's R10, and we know that either there's very low water pressure for Woodfin water, or it's there, or it's their own individual well, and almost everybody's on septic on the west side of the river.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, all 43 it includes that.
Yeah, and R43 as well. Pretty much on the west side of the river, it's pretty much all of it's dealing with water and sewer when you look at it, and Crest Mountain is pretty much it. So what the text will do, it will allow an ADU, but if somebody doesn't have the well capacity or the separation from a well for a second septic tank. So if you have 5 acres, let's say, in your R43, right now, you can have one dwelling. That's all you can have on the whole tract of land. We've had that come up, people with 2, 3, 5, 10 acres of land. They can have one dwelling unit. The ADU provision, if adopted, would allow them to have their house and the ADU. So they still have to clear with environmental health for that well to make sure they have capacity, and they have
Would
to.
that be in here, that they have to?
Well, it doesn't because of state regulation, and the septic tanks are based on bedrooms.
Right.
So if they don't have enough land, if they only have an acre, and the
Right.
soil is a type that doesn't support the extra dwelling, then the answer is no. So we're going to tell somebody, you're going to have the septic tank authorization.
Okay.
So I'm asking for, if you're on a septic, we're asking for the authorization. Like, have you had your field perk test? Have you had the soil scientists come out to look at the soil? We recommend that when they come in, but when I go to issue even a brand new house on an individual lot, we're getting that soil perk test or the authorization up front as part of that new single-family construction. Because you don't want to be subdividing lots too small in R10 that are 10,000 square feet, like Glenda,
right.
and you're on a well and septic, because you probably can't build.
See, I think 43 is where you have most of the issues, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Because
What's
there's a
our
lot
10
more
again?
sewers and, wells and septic
Yeah.
in that.
Yeah.
Including my neighborhood, so.
Yeah.
What's R10 in comparison?
I'm sorry?
What's R10 in comparison to
sorry?
R43?
Lot size.
It's just
Well, so there's a lot of differences.
There's a lot
There's a lot more allowed in R10 and R7. Those two allow a lot of multi-unit things, and
Right.
they're more likely to be in what I always call original Woodfin.
Okay.
The newer neighborhoods that are being built, a number of them have wells and septic, and they're big houses already. So, they're probably pretty much reaching their bedroom
Yeah.
capacity
Yeah.
just because of the house.
Yeah.
Gotcha, for the R43.
Yeah. So like you said, R43, so if you're on an acre lot, R43, it's 43,000 square foot lot, you probably are maxed out positionally, because you got to have, the well's got to be a certain location from so far from structures, and the septic tank system,
And
leach field.
you couldn't even put in a second septic in an acre, right? I mean, I didn't.
I don't know, because I'm not a soil scientist, but I think it's going to be very hard to be able to supply, because you got to have,
You have to have 2 sites.
yeah, you'd have to have not only two
Backup.
systems, but then you have to have the repair area.
That's what I mean, the
So
second.
they've got to have that. So typically, the geometry game doesn't work out. So I don't think we'll have that. We've had interest in, like, in town, like Glenda said, original Woodfin, the core here,
Yeah.
that has water and sewer. So we've had people that are on R7, Glenda, that are wanting to do like a mother-in-law suite or a second dwelling for family members. That's been the request I've had, have been actually, they want to build something for like their mom and dad, have their own full space, and not necessarily looking for rental income. It was more driven around family situations for either their aging or their family members aging and providing some sort of long-term care without being institutionalized.
So
But yeah.
so they have a max of 800 square feet when they're detached,
Yeah.
regardless of the 70% rule.
Yeah, yeah, and we'll work through that. So, and I'm gonna work through, just to answer
Yeah.
your question as well, Glenda, I'm gonna work through alphabetically.
Okay.
The slideshow, I've ordered it. I know that maybe online, the board packet might be a little out of sorts, but I'm gonna work through alphabetically with accessory dwelling being first. And then we'll work down to steep slope and nonconformities last.
Is there a limit to the number of dwelling units? It's got plural.
Yeah. Typically, we're looking at it as a dwelling unit. It's, under building code, it's a dwelling unit. We're just making a zoning term. So in the building code and fire code or for health department, there's no such thing as accessory dwelling unit. That's a term that's basically created in the zoning world for land use to say it's a second dwelling unit or a third dwelling unit, whatever you want to call it, that is subordinate or less than the main dwelling on the property. You can't build an ADU on a vacant lot, right? That's the house.
No, I meant,
But-
could you have two ADUs on?
No,
top?
we're not proposing that. We're proposing just basically you'd have your house and a single ADU, which would be two dwelling units on the property, but you wouldn't have a duplex and an ADU. We would be saying that's a third full dwelling. So, and I don't mind going over and looking at that line real quickly, Dylan, if you want me to.
Accessory dwelling units.
I just want to make sure that my wife doesn't build a property for her mom. Just kidding.
You're live.
I kid.
You're
And
live.
everybody's doing it for the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the other way around. It's not doing it for the old people. It's for the young people.
Chris, where are you at on the, what line are you
Oh, I
at?
was looking at, on the detached, yeah.
Okay.
And in there, I didn't see if it had anything about, how many units.
Okay.
I don't think it's specified.
Yeah, I think under 4A, an assessment shall be collected resident who have more than one single-family
Okay,
detached structure.
all right. got
So,
it. I was looking
answer-
down here, all right.
I'll put it on the screen here. Let me get over there. Let me just, I'll jump over this. So we'll cover tonight, the summary request is one accessory dwelling units. We're adding that as a limited use. And this is the order we're working. Height definition, as we recalled last time, that's align and simplify the definition. That's probably the simplest one that we're looking at tonight. Mountain Village, we're just basically clarifying the district standards, nothing major happening there. Number 4, nonconformities, we're clarifying, expanding situations covered. If y'all have looked at our article for nonconformities, it's really brief. It doesn't address a lot of situations. It's a very dry, nobody cares in the real world about nonconformities unless you're like in real estate, right, Stephanie?
Right.
If you're doing that and trying to help somebody figure out what to do with property, it's important. And then finally, steep slope, we're going to move or fold in chapter 40, steep slope, into chapter 54. And we're going to add some specific penalties that, based on some recent enforcement action that we've seen, that may be some holes or some places that the code's thin on, so we make sure we kind of cover our bases on that. So ADUs, so we're planning to add them as a limited use, and then it will permit ADUs in all residential zoning districts, and that would include Mountain Village. I believe I've added that. I'll double check while we're here. It established a maximum size for the detached and attached units unless it happens to be located within an existing house. So like a basement remodel. So if you have an existing ranch-style house. You see that a lot, ranch-style house, 1 floor, 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 1,700 square feet. Technically, this would allow somebody to go in and remodel the whole basement to make a 1,700 or 1,600 square foot dwelling downstairs. That's functionally a duplex under building code when you have 2 dwellings in the same structure that share a wall or ceiling or floor. That's a duplex under building code. We're just going to allow it as an ADU. And I'll tell you why. Here, clarify that no additional land is required for an ADU. So having that small garage apartment, remodeling the entire basement, you don't have to have, an extra 6,000 square feet in R7 to have the second dwelling. You can get by on the 7,000 square foot lot. We will require parking for the dwelling, the main house, and the ADU, so we're still going to require parking. If you displace the parking to build a structure on top of that parking pad, you're going to have to replace all the parking. So that might be 3 parking spaces, what you'd be required, 2 for the house, 1 for the ADU. So we're not going to push people to the street. All right, so let me escape here and tear down this piece over here.
Michael, can you see that mouse pointer?
Yeah.
All right.
That I can see. Far away, I'm good. As close I can.
I can't see
I can see the pointer, but what is it pointing at?
Yeah. So first question was Dylan said, how many dwellings can be on the property? So right here, number 4A1. An accessory dwelling unit shall be co-located on a residential lot containing no more than 1 single-family detached structure. You can still have your other accessory structures as allowed. So your carport, your storage garden shed, your pool, your retaining wall, that's what those are. So it's only 1 house. So a duplex that's already on the site is not going to have an ADU. That's already got too much to do that.
What about an artist studio? What are they?
Artist studios typically are just a structure that has maybe a kitchen sink and a bathroom. That's not a dwelling. So typically a
Okay.
dwelling, I'm not quoting building code, but it's basically a sleeping area, a sanitation area, and a food prep area. So your kitchen, your bathroom, and your bed.
And those can go in all districts too, all zoning districts?
What,
The regular, an artist studio?
Yeah, because that's just like we look at them just like a carport or a
They
garage.
come here and get a permit and
Yep.
they're pretty easy to get.
Yeah, they're pretty easy to get. Just like if it was a garage, art studio, game room. I've seen people build a garage with a mountain bike room for them to shower. But what makes it a dwelling is those 3 items, the bedroom, bathroom, and kitchen. So,
Okay, that's what makes it a
well,
dwelling.
yeah, there's another term, not to run rabbits here, but there's another thing in the building code called a sleeping unit. And that's exactly what it is. It's something not a house. So it's basically a bedroom. So you can go in your backyard and build a sleeping unit, and it's just basically a remote bedroom. Most people build those, and they're a bedroom and a bathroom, but there's not a kitchen, so it's not a dwelling unit. It's just a detached structure
Yeah,
that has a sleeping area, maybe or maybe not a bathroom. Most time people do, but there's not a kitchen. So just to confuse you a little bit more, but that's those terms in the building code. But you may hear a sleeping unit occasionally, but we're looking at a full-on small dwelling. The biggest thing is that I think the biggest door it opens is not requiring that extra lot size. Like you point out, Glenda, R7 and R10 allow for 2 duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, if you have enough land area. So our current code requires additional lot size. It's pretty much 7,000 square feet for unit number 1 to create the lot. To get unit number 2, you got to have another 6,000. So you're looking at 13,000 square feet. Hard to come by. Well, if somebody's not going to build a duplex, because what they're going to do if they can cut the lot in half, I'm 1,000 square feet short, go ahead and just make it 2 7s. You can sell it for a lot more than creating a second dwelling on your property. So in this case, if you've got the land area, then some people have houses positioned, they're modest homes, livable, but they want to add something small in the back. And we clarified that ADUs under number 5 will not be used for short-term rental, just to clarify they're not for that. And so there's some standards under detached. I think we wanted to make sure that detached structures, if they're new, do not create something that's like 2-story building behind or beside of existing 1-story cottage. In the original part of town, as Glenn just pointed out, there's a lot of like mill houses that are 1-story, 1.5, and they're 15, 18 feet tall, 20 tops. You don't want a 35-foot tall ADU stuck up beside of it, so we've kind of added that number, that letter D here. Yeah, sorry, B. Not exceed a height of up to a maximum of 25. So we're going to cap the ADUs so they can match the house height, but never exceed 25 feet. So we just make sure we keep that clarity that they're accessory and they're subordinate, and they will look like that too. And to answer your question too, Chris, about the size, under 1A, it's 70% of the gross floor area or 800 square feet, whichever is greater. So if you have 1,000 square foot house, you're guaranteed to build an 800 square foot cottage. That's in the back. If you have a 2,000 square foot area, then you could technically build 800 square feet or up to
Okay,
14.
so it could go over 800. It
could.
goes
It
to
could be
the
going
greater
over
of the
800.
two. I was reading the.
But it's kind of that idea of ratio. If you have a bigger home, then that allows for something a little bit bigger, but there's that ratio there, but you're guaranteed 800.
Gotcha.
That allows for a good size 2-bedroom, 1-bath unit at 800 square feet. I lived in a house that was 1,000 square feet, and it was 3-bedroom, 1-bath, and it was small bedrooms.
So they have a
Yeah,
tiny house, and I don't know we even have any Woodfin. They have a 600 square foot house.
they can do it.
They could still build an 800 square foot.
No, it'd be the dwelling, so that the ADU, that would be the small house would be the ADU. They could build 800, but they can choose to do 600 if they wish. We're not gonna make them build 800.
But they could.
They could,
So even if they had a 600 square foot house,
yes.
it's 70%.
Oh, yeah, if your existing house is, yeah.
They'd switch.
But it says whichever is greater, so if
Yeah,
800
yeah,
is
it
greater
is.
than 70%.
So you could have a 600 square foot house and an 800 square foot ADU.
Yeah, so we'd have to look at that one, because at that point, it might be that it becomes the subordinate. That it splits them
Exactly.
off.
That
Yeah.
house becomes
Exactly.
ADU.
But
Yeah.
then if you're building the back, now you got the subordinate in the front. So I mean, do we have to
Yeah.
clarify that says,
Yeah, that might be that we need to clarify that, so I'll make a note of that.
because the part that says whatever is greater is kind of confusing because
Yeah.
it should be capped that it has to be no larger than the size of the house, right?
Okay, that's really good that we worked through this.
And I don't know that we have 600 square foot houses, but
But, okay.
We're gonna see a lot more of that going
It could be an
forward.
800 square foot house too, it could just well be an 800 square foot, not still the same. Okay, I got that down.
But yeah, you're right though. It only matters though, to your point, when you look at point D.
Yeah.
And, does it really make a difference which one is called the main and which one's called the
Yeah.
That's true.
accessory? I don't know.
I think if I was to apply it today, what I would do is that if somebody had a 600 square foot house, it was situated square in the lot, and the only option was to build behind something bigger, I would have to tell them that they couldn't do it detached, because at that point, the smaller dwelling unit is technically the accessory dwelling unit. They reverse roles, which is fine, reversing roles, but they couldn't build it backwards. They'd have to either attach it somehow and build it under the next section down to make it straight up attached, or go with something smaller. Like, I just couldn't have the small dwellings. I think, are y'all comfortable with that language? Does that make sense?
No, I know, but I mean, this is being written now.
Yeah.
Do we want, I mean, what would be the issue? Would we, if you had a 600 square foot house
Yeah.
and they wanted to build the ADU and it needed to be behind it, then why wouldn't we want an 800 foot,
Yeah.
square foot ADU? I don't know.
Yeah. They
Doesn't
could
make
technically on paper do it, but because the being flipping roles as subordinate, then I wouldn't be able to allow it. They'd have to either attach it with a shared wall, or,
Approve them for a 600 square foot.
approve them for something $599 or less to
Could they
make.
build the ADU in front of the existing house and then swap them?
I would let them do that, because at that point, if they had the room, I'd say that's the new principal dwelling. So I would let them build it in front, as long as they
That's, I mean, as long as they have the setback room and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
that we'd have no problem.
Okay.
Just like if somebody wanted to build on a lot and build a small two-bedroom, one-bath, tiny house first, that'd be the principal dwelling. I'd just tell them, make sure you push it all the way back in the back corners as far as you can go. So if you plan to build another home later as your family grows, that you can build in front of it with the right geometry. And I've had that happen a couple times in other places.
If you had them build the house in front of the 600 square foot home, they could build a larger home if they
Yep.
wanted,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's correct.
They could do-
Up to 800 square feet.
Well, if it becomes the new principal, then it could be 2,000 square
Yeah.
foot
Wow,
house.
okay.
Because we're reclassifying the new house as the principal dwelling.
Okay.
But that would then essentially make the other issue moot, because it becomes the principal dwelling
Yeah.
if it's larger.
Yeah, it does. It
And
was
so-
just, yeah.
Right, but
Compared to
the only,
600 versus 800.
the scenario that then wouldn't be allowed would be if you didn't have room to build in front of it, and you had to build behind it.
Right.
Now you have to build, you can't build the bigger, now 2,000 square foot thing in back, it's gotta be in the front.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Is everybody satisfied with that answer? Okay. It's a good question that we're working through, because it's a question that's going to come up probably the week after if this gets adopted, the week after.
Always does.
It always does. The one question we didn't talk about. Okay,
So that, I'm just curious, on what's the reasoning behind that? So we're okay with them being, big in the front, small in the back, but you're not okay with it being small in the front, big in the back. Why is that?
it's because if it's a subordinate or accessory structure. Accessory structures are never to be in front of the principal, like,
It wouldn't look good.
it wouldn't.
That's
so-
all I'm wondering,
yeah,
I'm wondering like what,
It's mostly about the street face. It's more like the public realm. When you drive down the street, you're looking at houses, front doors, and you're not looking at the garage, detached garage or canopy carport or garden shed out front, out by the road 15 feet. Because some of our setbacks are 15 feet from the right-of-way. So you could have these little bitty small 250 square foot houses that could potentially go out in the front yard. And because the smallest house I've seen built under building code is about 235 square feet. When you chase all the geometries inside of a house under the building code, you can get down, if you get it right, about 235, 227. And most of that's driven around the bathroom clearances for your lavatory, your toilet, and your tub, shower, and then, of course, there's some kitchen geometry that you got to work
So
through.
you're talking about tiny house.
Yeah, I say small house because people think tiny house is DIY TV where it's built on an axle or trailer, and we're not talking about those. Those are not built according to any type of building code. They're basically an RV, so you
How about
could,
stick built?
stick built. How it gets there on the back of a yak or helicoptered in, that's fine, as long as you meet state building code. So, And the state law actually prevents us from mandating a minimum size of a home in North Carolina under zoning. So building code is what drives that size. So that's about the smallest you can build if you're creative, about 238 square feet. So, Chris, did I answer your question adequately enough? I was really sure, like, yeah.
No, not, I mean,
Yeah,
you did answer it, but I actually don't, if you had like a 10-acre thing and you have a house back here in the back, now you can't put an ADU somewhere over
Yeah.
here in the woods.
Yeah, and it could be that we could, and what
It
if-
depends on the property is what
Yeah.
I'd be thinking, that, what's the layout of the thing? If if the road comes and there's this long driveway or something.
Couldn't they divide the property if they really wanted to and?
That's possible.
I guess you
You've
could,
got
you
10
could make
acres, you could
it,
probably
you could just divide it
divide
at that point. Okay,
Yeah,
that's true.
yeah.
I'm just thinking, I wouldn't want to cut someone off from being able to make an ADU just because of the way that it was situated, and we're talking who's primary, who's secondary.
And we could look at accessory structures section, come back to this as we move through the code. This is not a one and done text amendments we're doing tonight. We're going to keep moving as we move through the comp plan. We're going to try to bring some stuff forward. It's a good one to bring up maybe if you have 3 acres or 5 acres, that the position or location of accessory structures, the garage, the barn, ADU, if you're like, say, 5 acres or larger, we don't care about where you put it on your 5 acres because you're probably got, like you said, the ranch-style house maybe in the back 40, that's okay. It's so rural, that kind of rural landscape on the west side of the river is kind of a moot point when you have 4 or 5 acres of land. So we could visit that as a standard for our accessory structures in the coming months if you want to. We could talk
Yeah,
about
that seems to, it seems to make sense to me, depending on the property, if we just followed it by the letter of that rule, it would include any size, shape, but as you get to some point, some of those street-facing things might not make sense. What if the street is, I don't know, that's all. So if we're adding a whole ability to have these ADUs to begin with, we should think about,
And
all the cases.
Ricky, while you're making notes, I still think if you don't put that they have to meet state health standards, whatever those are, when it comes to septic and wells and with the addition, you're going to have people trying to do it.
Well,
Yeah,
if y'all
that's a good
want
point.
to
I
make-
agree.
If you want to include something about recommend that language tonight as we move through that voting, we'll
Okay.
make that recommendation and we'll write that up and make sure if you're, like, as long as you include something about meeting state health regulations for well septic access, then I'll add that as we
It'd be
move.
kind of where, if you look at, number, it's like 4A2, where it says that the accessory dwelling units may only be located on lots that conform to the minimum dimensional standards for the district. It'd be another point in there that would say that the ADU would have to,
Go through
still
other-
meet the,
Other departments'
State-
approvals.
right, the required,
It's kind of
water and sewer.
redundant, though, because the township would not issue a building permit if it doesn't meet all the,
They have to still have to go through.
it's
all
got to
that.
have a lot of behind-the-scenes approvals for everything else.
Yeah, and I think your point was just that it doesn't say it in here.
Ricky, for Chris's question,
Yeah.
if there was the person that had the 10-acre or whatever, and there was the way it was situated, they could come in here for a variance, correct?
Correct.
So
They could still.
We could allow it.
You
On
could.
a case-by-case basis.
You could.
It's not flat out, no, thou shalt not be able to.
I cannot issue the permit based, if, under this language, I could not,
Right.
yeah. But like, I think Chris and Glenn also mentioned, that they could subdivide, it's possible they could subdivide, we would present that as an option first, or they could apply to this board. And I said, if the board wants to, we can investigate accessory structures later on as we move through the year. Right now, I'll say that the people who've approached me could do it, and where they wanted to do it, I could issue a permit right now under these standards. It's, where they had planned to put it worked under our current code. Right now, they just can't, they're sitting on go, waiting on this, or the General Assembly to issue a statewide ADU law. And there was one floating back in April that stalled out. They were looking at allowing statewide.
Everybody did that.
Everybody statewide under every scenario.
That died, you're saying.
It stalled out. Who knows is what's in the state budget bill? I do not know. Who knows? That can always be a grab bag when the budget bill lands.
I think that, right, if we're writing new,
Yeah.
a new thing, we might as well make it so that we don't end up having a bunch of people lined up going, okay, we need a special variance, we need a special, If they're all, if they all seem to fit in a major category that we say fits a rule that
Yeah.
we should just write in.
I think it's better to go ahead and put it in now.
Okay.
Instead of them coming to us for some type of variance down the road.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah. So like accessory dwellings in front of structures on what size acre lot y'all thinking about, or was that what you're?
I don't know what, I forget how many square feet, you were saying things like 7,000, I forget what an acre is.
43,560 square feet in an acre.
220 by 220.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you've got something that's 2 or more, or 3 or more, something like
Yeah.
that, where you easily have space to put something.
You just never know how things are already gonna be sitting on a lot and how the lot is shaped, and so,
Yeah. It'd probably be one of the things that I will probably be, I'll just say, I'm interested in looking at that 3-4 acre size range for all accessory structures, for like pole barns and garages, because like you said, there's some lots out there in town that are big. So I was thinking of that, but I'm trying not to get too fast and too quick on changing rules without the comp plan being adopted. I want to make sure that we've heard the voice of the community. But yeah, not to stall, but I was thinking not just ADUs, but just a garage or a pole barn could be in front of a house if it's 3, 4, 5 acres.
Right.
Is what I was thinking in general. Not,
Makes
because
sense.
that way it's not just ADUs, because it could be something else.
Yeah, another structure, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. So anyway, I'm not trying to keep, I will keep talking here, I'm sorry. So again, attached, and we're saying that if you're adding on that, on B there, that you could make an addition onto a home. Sometimes people are adding on to an existing structure to make it ADU. That if the house is, let's say, 20 foot tall, that the new addition, again, is not creating this like way out of whack. We want to try to preserve some character with not going up 15, 20 more feet on a house. We're going to try to keep it like no more than 4 feet over. It could be 5. I don't know. I'm not married to the 4 feet. I threw 4 feet in there. That's why I need y'all's thoughts. Do you think 4 foot extra height on a brand new addition for an ADU that's attached, sharing a wall, ceiling? What do y'all think? Do you think that? Because if you already have an existing like 1.5 story house and somebody wants to add on, I mean, is there any thoughts about a 4 foot height extra, or?
I think less is more.
Less is
I mean,
more.
I would almost see no higher than the
No higher,
existing
yeah.
house, but if you want to give them a little bit of wiggle room,
We were just thinking a little bit of wiggle room.
4
just-
foot's not much, so.
Yeah, we were just thinking something to kind of help keep the ridge lines about the same, or if there was some low clearances on a 1.5 stories or something, they could at least get a full 2 stories or whatever's going
Well,
on.
a view from a street, if you're only about 4 feet higher, is not gonna be that big a deal.
No, you wouldn't even hardly notice 4
No.
feet.
Yeah.
Okay. I just see what.
and you may have trees that are kind of blocking it anyway, and you don't even see it.
I wouldn't go any I don't think I'd go any higher than that.
Okay, yeah, I just kind of struck with 4. Me and Shannon talked about 3, we talked about 2, I went with 4.
Yeah, I would think, you want to leave enough room for the slope of like a roof that might
Need to be pitched higher. or
Yeah, they need to be
something.
pitched higher, so it might be like
Yeah.
4 or 5 or something like that.
Yeah.
And it depends on the distance, but.
Yeah, because there could be some ranch style houses they're going to go in the attic and pop that up. They've got some, because I've got an attic where it's 7 feet, but if I wanted to go up 4 feet would make my attic, raise the roof of my house, would add a whole living space to my house, but wouldn't substantially change how I fit in my neighborhood, whereas if you added a full 10 feet, it would. Okay. Again, like number 3, we just talked about like that exception that we did add that may not occupy non-conforming residential structure. So we clarified that if you had that garage, right, that was 2 foot off the property line, off the side, you cannot convert that to an ADU. So you can, because I remember we talked about extensively that, that structure is very intermittently used. It's a garage or somebody's going and doing a little bit of hobby work. Lights go off at 9, 10 o'clock at night. It's quiet most of the day. If you move somebody in, they're cooking, they're out there talking on their patio, lights are on and off, exhaust, fumes. That's a big disruption versus, making sure they're 7 feet off the property line. So we clarified that non-conforming structures cannot be used for an ADU. And that's what I heard last time. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But is that opposite what 3 says? I'm trying, where 3 says as long as you keep it within the existing structure, then we're okay.
Yeah. Attached accessory dwellings that do not expand existing structure, share a common foundation, exterior walls, and roof of the principal dwelling may occupy non-conforming residential structures. Okay, yeah, 3.
So that almost sounds like you could use a garage.
Yeah, could use, you convert the house, the garage, an existing house garage. Let me see here. We did add that.
So maybe may not occupy, non-conforming.
So if I had a house that was 6 feet off the side property line, I could let you convert the garage of that attached house. Let's see here, we did.
So is it, the confusion I have is if your garage is non-conforming,
The garage is not.
this says that I think this says you could convert it, which is
You
what
could
I think we
convert it,
don't
I'm
want,
sorry.
right?
Yeah. This is if it's part of the house, I'm sorry, this is when it's attached accessory dwelling that do not expand.
Oh, attached, okay.
Attached. So if I had a house that's non-conforming and you were converting the garage or the basement, we'd let you do it. I'm sorry, I thought I was reading another part. Okay, here it is. We clarify here, I'm sorry, C. Detached accessory units must comply with all required setbacks for the use.
Okay.
Let's get rid of that part. Sorry, but, yes, you're right, Michael.
So it's
Yeah.
different than non-conforming detached. So if you had an existing non-conforming detached,
If you had an existing non-conforming structure, like a garage,
right,
I would not be able to issue a zoning permit to change that garage to an ADU, even if you've done no work to the outside, like you didn't do anything but just remodel, I could not issue the permit under this code. Now, if you had a garage that was part of your ranch-style house, that was 5 feet off the property line, but your house, it's your house, right? It's your garage. You go out of your kitchen, go in your garage, and you wanted to convert that space into living space, I could, which we would let you do that today if you wanted to remodel for a great room. You're like, I'm going to take out my garage and make a new bedroom, owner suite, and a great room. I'm like, okay. But it's in the roof. It's existing. So hopefully I've not over-explained all this to y'all. I sometimes get talking. We are adding one definition for ADUs to 5410. So that's one definition being added out of this section. So have I over-explained this section too much? Have I talked over it too much? Glenda's laughing at me. She says,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm kidding.
You know, my wife lives hard as I eat, sleep, and breathe zoning crap all day long. So.
So she's glad when you have to work late.
Yeah, she occasionally dials in to watch me here occasionally. Just so you
See
know.
what time you're gonna be home.
There's that. And she's like listens and watches. She actually likes Board of Adjustment
Oh, well,
applications.
good for her.
Yeah, we're probably when I retire, we'll probably be going to watch variance hearings, popcorn. She's like,
That sounds exciting.
yeah, well,
got it all planned out.
all planned out. Yeah, I'm sorry. That's one of the things I kind of talk too fast. I like it so much that I kind of get excited. So sorry. It's one of these things I'll just say that for ADUs, it's a real granular, like on the ground, it's really small change that really does to me have impacts to individuals that I've met. Either it's just because they're getting family members on the same property, whether it's mom and dad or a kid. They're moving out of their house into the small unit, so their kid moves in the main house, or they rent that house out for a bigger family, and they got income for long term. There's just it's small without like changing lot sizes or adding, changing the heights of structures and trying to cram triplexes on small lots. It's just a real small kind of, a small level of change that can have some, I wouldn't say like radical impacts. Radical, I think it's just granular for certain people. It makes a big difference, but it's not like what I've seen in like other places. People don't bum rush the gates because ADUs are allowed now. It's not like we're going to get 50 permits this year. We may get 5 this year, but it's still.
It's going to be a growing area, though.
It's a
It
growing
will,
area.
Because of the housing issues.
Yeah,
That's
it's-
right.
Yeah, Raleigh's made a lot of inroads. Some states have made statewide mandates. I mean, North Carolina come within a gnat spread this year. So I think we're just going to be ahead of that curve locally on that. So anyway, before we move to heights, is there any other questions? Are y'all content with this? As long as we come back, Chris, and investigate accessory structures and larger lots, right? If we put that in the next hopper, right, for some next round? Okay. All right, let's.
Didn't we kind of agree to the height issue when we were,
I think we did. I think this one's going to be very brief for you, Glenda. I think you're correct. Basically, we were going to take the much simpler height definition out of steep slope in chapter 40 and put it in Article 54, and then add 2 definitions, one for buildings and one for structures. And I'll show you in a minute. And then we're going to just get rid of this modifications under 54.316. There's a whole SUP that would come for this board to exceed the height of 35 feet in the town. But there's not really a lot of standards when it's more appropriate really as a variance, if you need to break the height limit, or go to town council, as we've seen with like the Hawthorne development on Reynolds Mountain Boulevard, that was 4 stories and 54 feet tall. They came before this body as the planning board and got approved, recommended approval, and approved by city council for that legislative modification. So there's 2 avenues to exceed height without this quasi judicial, and I've honestly never seen anywhere else do an SUP for height. It seemed like, if you had a group development and needed a height modification, then you really need to go see city council. If you're really got a unique development that needs height. So there's more general input on the feel and character as opposed to those very specific standards y'all just seen. It's like you've got to check all those little boxes and you're like, this doesn't fit the character of the neighborhood at all. You're like, really, how do you judge this that it fits when you're like, my gut tells me no, but the law says yes. It hems you in pretty badly. So anyway, that's a long way of saying we're getting rid of that SUP. That's one less thing for y'all to do. So as you see here, the white portion is the current definition in 5410. Sorry, Scott.
Make it a little bigger.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes. Let's see.
You want to scale to the size of the mouse?
I didn't get it. I was picking on me about the mouse. Is that a little bit better?
Yep, I can see
If I
it.
need to go bigger, let me know. So the white portion there, 5410, that's our current definition in the zoning code. So it says, you measure 3 points along the front facade, 3 on the sides, each side, 3 on the back, and then if they've got a 5-side, 6-sided house, I go around and I gotta get 12, 15, 18 points, add them together, divide by the number of points to get the height. So really confusing. Never seen a height done like this. So in red, it's the average of the shortest and tallest sides of the building, from the tallest peak of the roof to the base of the building at grade. Hollow, right? Hollow. That's how we do it in steep slope. We're just going to make it uniform across the town. Hollow. There is exceptions about chimneys, ventilators, antennas, as long as they don't extend more than 4 feet. And then domes, towers, or spires, which are an integral part of the institutional buildings, aren't subject to that height. So if you have a steeple or some sort of bell tower, as long as there's no rooms for people to stay inside, then you can do it.
So does that mean there is no height limitation to
Technically,
those
there's
things?
no height limit on like a steeple, but functionally, you don't see that because of engineering cost and wind loading in this area. We've got some pretty high winds that you have to make sure you get the lateral force. I will say though, let's see, height measured. Yeah, I don't think we, yeah, as far as that. I want to make sure I didn't add something else in there. And so we added the height of a structure means the greatest vertical distance from the top of the structure to the base of the structure. That's in there right now at 5410. So we're keeping structure. That'd be more like a water tank, the substation, a cell tower. We're just defining that. We don't have a lot of those standards. We'll probably be.
We don't have a lot of cell towers.
No,
I'll agree with you on that.
Yeah, we don't have them. We got 2.
I wanna, how can we get a third?
Yeah. We'll probably will eventually.
Cell phone signal along Riverside Drive.
The cell phone service here is not good right here either. But it'd be something we'll probably be looking at again. As telecommunication ordinance is another one that I'll be looking at as well. So I like telecommunication towers too, Scott. Don't worry. I'm all excited about cell towers.
Hey, will they pay me if I have it on my property?
Yeah. Maybe. All right, then you'll be excused from the board then.
I'll be rich.
And as you'll see, I renumbered 54,234. We're just going to collapse and just refer to that height shall be measured as defined in 5410. So the steep slope is going to point back to our definitions instead of enumerate it separately. And then height limitations, there's the special use permit requirement, gone, proposed to be gone. Any other questions on this? Okay.
I agree.
Okay. Okay, so Mountain Village, hopefully this will be straightforward as well. We're just clarifying that properties already zoned Mountain Village can be developed with the uses listed. We do have some bigger properties, but we also have some small 3-acre parcels, 8-acre parcels that are kind of sprinkled around for whatever reason that are vacant. And we're just saying that if there's an X under the permitted use table and you're either not a major subdivision or a large development of 30,000 square feet, then you could build a house technically on that small 3-acre tract, right? If you had 3 acres of Mountain Village and you want to build a house, we're saying you don't need a CZ. You can, that's how I've applied it. If you want to build a house, yes. If you want to cut it in 3 lots, that's fine. The biggest change, I think, is amend the density. Right now, it says shall be at least or a minimum of 8 units per acre. And we want to flip that to a maximum of 8 units per acre. And when you look back recently of the Charter Mountain, remember that one we just seen the other month? That was an average density of 3.3 dwelling units an acre. The terrain in Mountain Village most of the time is very rolling. It's pretty steep. I think it's kind of over the top. I think it's just excessive, honestly, to think that any tract of land like that in our topography would ever have 8 and 10 dwelling units an acre. It would require extreme amounts of grading, earth movement, either financially infeasible and probably shocking to our community to have that much of earthwork to require 8 or 10 units an acre.
Isn't that really, though, what was involved even with the Bluffs and Robin Hood, that they wanted, because it was Mountain Village, they were coming in with huge plans that were probably...
That might have been, but...
I mean, I'm actually bothered by the fact we even have this zoning designation, but I assume it's not just in Woodfin, that this is something
Well, I mean, Mountain Village is a unique district to Woodfin, but there's districts like that have, every town's different. I mean, it's,
Doesn't it just create, I mean, developers wanting to do things that,
potentially, and I think with more recent changes with conditional
I
zoning.
think we've got, okay.
I think conditional zoning really brings that back, because if you have, 20 dwelling units,
Right.
regardless of major subdivision, or 30,000 square feet, or New Mountain Village, you got to have a CZ. So if you wanted to rezone 2 acres, Glenn, I think you remember when I first got here, we had Olivet was adding on about 15 lots.
Right.
It's only 15 lots, right? But because they wanted MV, the fact that they were adding on to Mountain Village, that required a CZ. So they had to have that.
Which we gave them, right?
We gave it to them. 15 lots in and of themselves as a subdivision doesn't
development.
trigger Mountain Village, but because you were adding new, that did. So I think with the changes though,
But didn't, in the comprehensive planning group, we talked about this being mixed use. I mean, in a way, that's a better description of it than Mountain Village, but,
yeah, it's heavy on residential with a little bit of light commercial for that neighborhood. So I think the other thing too is and I'll work through it here in just a minute, but the biggest thing is maximum density, clarify some landscape standards. We kind of took out a few things on design and architectural, clarified them, and then clarify open space connectivity.
So can Mountain Village still be in steep slope? I think that is kind of to your concern, right?
Yeah,
there are some, definitely some steep slope that are Mountain Village, not all, but some.
It seems like an oxymoron to me. Yeah, when you look at the standards that we have for steep slope and the amount that you can disturb, the percentage that we allow for disturbance on the steep slope would make it so that you couldn't do.
You might be right. We may just be looking at things that happened in the past before things changed,
Right.
but they are still, yeah.
Well, the one last month, was it, or the month before,
It
up
would-
on Riverside Drive, they had steep slope, but they did not touch it. They did more of a cluster construction. So they did not even want to go down that road. So that was a good thing.
yeah. Yeah, and that's true because of steep slope, you're still, and regardless of your zoning, or your R43 or CS, you're still limited to that 15% grading of the entire tract and 8% impervious area. So regardless of that, it really, it goes a long ways with that standard, really goes a long way to attenuate that kind of overdevelopment on properties above that 2,200, which really captures pretty much most of everything east of Weaverville Highway and up toward Bear Bridge and Running Ridge, up in that area. There's some areas in the center.
Robin Hood, that area is all.
Yeah,
up
all
above.
in it now.
So
So
then so basically steep slope almost overrides
it would,
what would be even allowed by Mountain Village because it couldn't because of steep slope.
yeah, because you have to kind of look at it as, like I say, sifting flour. You got to kind of work through the layers. Like, you got to meet the Mountain Village standards and also steep slope and also, whatever road design standards for fire. You've got to meet all these. So it's just,
So the steep slope, though, I just wanted to, actually, this was a question I had, is only properties above 2,200
yes,
feet, right?
2,200 feet.
So you
and
have
then-
neighborhoods that are really mixed.
Yeah. You have, so it's not necessarily the percent slope of the property, it's the elevation of 2,200 feet and 20% average slope. And then anything above 3,000 feet in elevation, so anything at 3,000 feet is in automatically. No matter if it's tabletop flat, if it's 3,000 foot elevation, it's in.
But the percentage of incline, that can be higher than that under 2,200 feet?
Yeah, it's not, there's no technically.
I'm asking for my own property, so.
Yeah, so if you're under 2,200 feet and you're at 40% slope, steep slope doesn't apply to you. We would recommend you get a geotechnical report if you're over 35%.
Which they should have.
Because it's going to help you on your foundation. Trying to respect y'all's time, I know you're.
Okay,
I'm sorry, so just like I said, just saying adding for existing areas zone Mountain Village, initial development is limited to uses found in 54, 143, that's the use table. and restrictions under 144, which is limited uses, and it's applicable with larger projects subject to 156, which is CZ. So we're just saying basically how we've been practicing 3-acre tract, you want to cut it in half, go ahead and do it, as long as you meet steep slope or your subdivision standards. You want to build a house on each one, that's fine. You want to build a 25-unit apartment complex, you got to come through a CZ.
And would that be the case? So Mountain Village, like the Bluffs, for example, would be, would have to fit underneath anything in 54, 143, 144, 156?
If we were to get, if we have an existing parcel that's on Mountain Village and they come with new development, yeah, they would have to come in with a, depending on the steep slope location and/or size of the project. Again, dwelling units, if it's 20 units or more, or lots, or 30,000 square feet in floor area, that's going to trigger a CZ review through this body and city council. And that's regardless of zoning district. So always. So maximum average density of 8 units per acre, not at least, but maximum of 8. So all the white stays, right? All the white stays. We changed here impervious surface. It says a maximum 70%. It used to allow to go over that, right? If you've done some stormwater attenuation, well, we're just saying, let's just stop you at 70%, right? We require stormwater anyway. If you're grading an acre or over 50%, we already require stormwater device. Let's just cap you. If you're at really 70% of Mountain Village areas, we probably don't want that, but we're capping it. We're saying that's the ceiling, 70%. So that other part goes away. That's what we just don't want to allow any. There's no option to go above. And so we were just clarifying on the landscaping buffering standards that these are things that we need to see. Like the landscape buffer is at least 15 feet wide, and it's adjacent to dissimilar zoning. So if you're doing Mountain Village and you're up against R43, you got to have a 15-foot buffer. We're looking for large maturing street trees, not just street trees, but large maturing street trees. And we're saying, and it said per 40 feet of street frontage, we're saying per 40 foot of linear. Got something more codified.
So is this large maturing defined somewhere?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I mean,
We're gonna have that.
Your version of large and my version of large
Yeah.
might be
So
different.
a large maturing tree is going to be at least like a 2-inch caliper, which is 6 inches above the root ball, and like usually it's 12 to 14 foot tall. So we're looking for it's a tree like an oak, a maple, something western North Carolina native that will be a large canopy tree. Crepe myrtles, red bud, serviceberry, that's not going to be our street tree that we're looking for. We're looking for something large. So again, red is what we're adding. Buffering park areas within 30 feet of streets. So we're hoping that if somebody was to put the building in front of the parking lot, we're not asking them to buffer the parking area of the building. We're just kind of clarifying that if you have an intervening building or you have a parking lot 40 or 50 feet back, there's going to be a landscape area. We're just clarifying when do you have to have that buffering of parking? And it's 10 foot wide.
So the A where you have 15 feet?
Yeah.
That seems short in comparison to the buffer you're putting on 30 feet for.
No, that says if you have parking within 30 feet of the street, you have a
then
10-foot
it's
planting
10 foot
yard.
wide.
Sorry.
Got it.
We already required a minimum of 10-foot planting, but it had no locational sense to it.
I was
It's
reading
like,
it wrong.
so it's like, well, my parking lot's 100 feet from the street, right? So do I still need to put a buffer in? Yes, I think. We're just saying because you might be building a parking lot for a shared use and you've got a building pad reserve that's not been built upon. We don't want you to put a buffering in that area needlessly. Under E, we're just adding that 75% of the material is plants native to the mountains of western North Carolina. Sorry, Scott.
I am sure there's a list of what those plants are. How was it developed? How far back in time did we go to know what was native?
I don't know. We're going to probably work on getting a list. There's some lists out there, and we'll probably be bringing that landscaping list to y'all. That's another one. We'll be bringing this list. That's another one of them things I'm going to put together. There's a couple, Greenworks has ones. Buncombe County has a good list. Some of it's driven on, high elevations. It's elevation driven aspect. Are you facing north and west or south and east? Because there's moisture content, soil types. But we'll look at something kind of reasonable but not too explicit to bring to y'all. I'll just tell you honestly, landscaping standards for this town are real light. I've been in one other place that was lighter than this. The only time we require landscaping is honestly for screening yards between like community shopping and residential uses, those buffers, and Mountain Village. Mountain Village actually has landscaping standards. That's not found elsewhere in our code.
Yeah, my concern is just if we're going to say something, we need to be able to define what it is.
Yeah. So we're getting the language in here. Clearly I know, and Shannon's a landscape architect by training, we know that if it's a certain oak, we'll look to see if it's native. Most people propose to pick up something from several of the reputable nurseries in the area and landscaping contractors. It's more or less trying to avoid people like planting a magnolia or something that's straight up invasive is what we're looking at. But long-term, which is like hopefully in not like years, but like in the next 6 months, we'll have like a list to bring to y'all as a recommended species list for people to use. So sounds like you're going to be the person I need to float it by first. And we will do that, Scott. I will be glad to let you look at it.
Chairman of the landscaping club.
We just increased landscape aisle to 20 feet right here under 9 from 10. Open space, I think we just added what those would include, like parks, playgrounds, walking trails, swimming pools, and instead of public sports facility, we say sports fields and courts. Just kind of defining or broadening what we're looking, not passive parks, but things that are more engaging. We just didn't want wooded land. Like that's the part we're saying we want active open space under here. We struck out rooftop gardens as an option, and there was some incongruencies on the amount of open space required. It was stated twice, and they conflicted, and we went with the 500, the higher amount. Straighten out that confliction. Pedestrian connectivity, we added greenways under it, sidewalks, greenways, and/or trails. And then, of course, it was redundant. They shall access all areas. And I think it's because it says provide to connect all sections of development, and it goes right below it and says you're supposed to connect everywhere. So we just kind of removed the duplication in the second sentence. We specify that greenways may be constructed in lieu of or in addition to sidewalks. Not trails, but greenways in addition to sidewalks. Because a greenway is an improved surface, a trail is a dirt track. We had that discussion at Charter Mountain, was a trail, is it a greenway, what's that look like? Greenways typically, 6 to 10 foot cross section, paved. A trail's an 18-inch dirt track. And we specified that a greenway has to be 10 feet wide and not a trail 6 feet. And then as far as design here, we just basically said not permitted is vinyl and EFS or other artificial are not permitted in that. And that's mostly applicable to commercial construction. All these under here, 1, 2, and 3, they were residential and they were like guidelines. If you know state law, we cannot mandate materials and finishes for single-family construction under the 1-2 family building code. We just can't. You can regulate the setback, you can regulate the mass, you can regulate the height, But you can't do anything about the orientation and placement of garage and entrances, things like that. So just taking out things that we can't even do anything with is kind of misleading to say, we're going to encourage you not to do these things. But with the commercial part, we remove the shoulds to the shall. So should is sometimes permissive, kind of past tense required, it's not really certain. So we said for commercial, you shall front the street, doors shall be located on the street side of the building, you shall have a pedestrian connectivity, and you shall have a safe pedestrian route. So we're just putting some specificity in there for site design. And so that was real dry, but any questions about that? I think it just helps, if we do get a Mountain Village development comes back in again, I think it helps y'all, at least from a CZ standpoint, that you'll have something.
So are we saying that sidewalks are a shall altogether? Because wasn't there one that we were looking at?
This is that section was commercial.
Yeah, well, that was about the 11 sidewalks, 12 is building design, I'm sorry. We're just saying that you'll have,
This part right here, where does that apply?
this is to commercial buildings, so you should have a sidewalk from the front of the building to the public sidewalk. Sometimes I'll say this, if in commercial buildings, you're supposed to have a connection from the building to the public way, or an area of safe dispersal, so they can kind of create an area that goes out into the side part of the property, and you can take a sidewalk and disperse the public into this area of refuge to be picked up
That's how I
or
do it at this.
Yeah,
congregate.
I
We're
was
saying here
not
that we
seeing-
want to have the pedestrian connection to the street.
Right,
But-
I didn't realize we were only underneath building design for
Yeah,
building,
but
but
back
not
to
in
11,
neighborhood.
sidewalks, yes, we're saying pedestrian connectivity is required in the district. And that can be accomplished with sidewalks, greenways, and/or trails. But you've got to have the pedestrian connectivity. So if you go back to our Charter Mountain one last month or two, right? We had a discussion about trails and greenways and sidewalks. They didn't have sidewalks, but Mountain Village gives you the option to do one or all of these three. So you got a menu, it's not mandatory on here. Well, y'all laughing at me? No, something went on. But it does specify, sorry, yes,
I was just going to ask, you use must in some places and shall in others.
yeah. We can, where's I got my must at? Yeah, I think,
You got your must above that, or down below also. Keep going down. There's a must in red.
okay, we're saying that they
Is there
must
a
have,
difference?
yeah, we just kind of use that term. We changed the may to must. I can,
Or
if you
must
rather,
and
if you
shall.
want to have a shall, we can switch that to shall. Shall be accompanied.
I like must better,
Okay.
frankly. Shall sounds to me like,
Biblical,
if you're going to have it at some time in the future, you shall,
yeah,
as opposed to
yeah.
Must
this
sounds-
must.
Yeah, I think our intent here is that they have to have that as part, the architectural design must be part of the package, whereas the building is something forthcoming, that if you're doing that, we're looking for it, but I would interpret that in a design, if somebody submits a site plan to me, that I would be looking for these 4 items for a building as far as pedestrian connectivity or for the structure and its placement on the site. That's a good point. I mean, if y'all have an opinion, I don't care. I'm shouting must. I think we were looking for mandatory language or compulsory language over
Voluntary.
voluntary or permissive or implied. I don't know. It was somewhere between like, you should, is it a good idea? Shouldn't speed, or I shall not speed. Well, I shouldn't be speeding, but I do it occasionally.
I shall only speak up again if I must.
Right. It sounds like you're right.
Must.
Notwithstanding, that's another phrase.
Hard,
in
hard.
lingo.
That's-
So how do y'all feel about this though? But yes, Chris, pedestrian connectivity is required as part of Mountain
That was
Village.
my question.
Yes, it is required.
Yeah.
It just can show up in 3 forms. You got a menu option, but if sidewalks are provided, they must be located along the streets and roads with a planting strip, and greenways, we have specified, have to be 10 feet wide. So, any feels like, I know everybody's ready to go to sleep here. They're like, okay, sorry, I know I'm belaboring this.
No, it's good.
Nonconformities will hopefully roll through this one really quick. Y'all can care less about that. So, if you've seen this chapter, I think Stephanie, you and Glenda might be the only ones I've talked to about nonconformities on one-on-one maybe. It's a really short section, really short. It's probably the most abbreviated nonconforming section I've ever worked with. It leaves a lot of gaps. So what we plan to do is expand the number of land uses covered, like general open uses of land, clarify about structures and uses, where manufactured home parts and individual manufactured home sites, and also hit in landscaping, screening as well. Make sure that we have standards for repair, maintenance, or casualty. Sometimes there's catastrophic loss of nobody's fault. We want to clarify too, this has been debated a couple times by applicants, whether their lot in steep slope is still subject. They're like, well, I was platted before, am I subject? We're just going to come out and say that, yes, you are. You're subject to steep slope. And like I said, individual lots for mobile homes.
So there's no grandfathering.
So everything in this is red, right? It's just all new section. And so basically I'll say here, like C, expansions to a nonconformity are not allowed, generally speaking. You can't add on to the building, you can't expand to open use of land. About the only thing that would be allowed would be like an extension of maybe something less than 500 square feet, and that's maybe for an egress path. You know, maybe they need, fire marshal comes in and says, you've added new equipment to your building and process, now you need a fire door right here. Well, you're gonna have to go outside and probably put in a landing area, and you might need to enclose it because health regulations make you add on. So let's say it's a 100 square foot addition because of that. Technically, this code would not allow that addition. We're saying, yes, you could, as long as you don't create a setback issue. We'll just let you do that. Little small things to keep it going. So we have a thing called dimensional nonconformities. That's basically like lot area, setbacks, heights, lot widths. And so basically we're saying that non-conforming lots are the first one we talk about. Basically, if you have one, you can use a lot for a single family use, so long as you meet the standards for the setback. So if you're required to have a 20 front, a 20 rear, and a 10 on the side, you could build something there as long as you can meet the setbacks for that respective district. So long, or you can make an addition as long as you don't make it worse. So you can't add on to your house and go into the setback further, whether that be up or out. You've seen a variance recently on, we had the garage that went up. So we didn't really have that real explicit language in our code about that structure. That would right here, Glenda, that would answer where in the code do you point to that says you can't add on? Well, we'll have it right here. You cannot add on.
Well, he asked for a variance.
He asked for a variance,
Yeah.
so you would have to come back here. We kind of interpreted, so he came here, but I want to have something where it's explicit, it's not up for debate.
So they just don't have blanket okays?
Yeah.
So if they want to do something, they're going to have to come and we have to approve it?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. We're addressing lots of
You
continuous.
probably don't know the answer to this,
Yeah.
but what percent of Woodfin, especially in the original Woodfin, would you say is non-conforming?
I have no idea.
Do you think it's a fairly large percentage?
I would think it's fairly large. I think the only saving grace is that for a lot of Woodfin is that a lot of the lots are a little bit wider than what I've seen in like in Asheville or some other places developed. You know, there's a lot of 60 and 70, 80 foot wide lots here. there was a lot more, I've been other places that were like 40 and 50.
And the
so-
percentage of mobile home parks, which you told me are all non-conforming.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah, basically every mobile home we have in town is almost everyone, almost everything.
Even those that are located in neighborhoods are non-conforming.
Yeah, because we actually don't have a mobile home park zoning district. Like we don't, our code says now that mobile home parks are not allowed, basically. We don't even have anything that says the use is allowed. So every park is non-conforming. All single wides are non-conforming on individual lots, and a lot of our double wides, weirdly enough, like R43 and R21, which are more rural, don't allow double wides. But you can have them in R10, which is actually closer to in town, which is kind of the opposite of what I think. This one just talks about lots of continuous frontage. If you can't meet the setback, it's considered one. It says what a lot of record is. Here we talked about minimum lot size, steep slope. All previous land disturbance and impervious surfaces shall be included in any new development application. So again, kind of how we had that one variance back in the beginning of February where we had the land disturbance that was outside the right-of-way on their lot. You were kind of like, well, Ricky, how are you making that leap? I think that kind of clarifies that all existing land disturbance. So it'll just kind of make it very clear to the applicants and to y'all that if there's grading activity on a parcel, you got to provide that calculation up front to us. And then you move down to B, so structures. You can have a structure that's too close to the side property line and it's allowed in the district. So the house that's 3 foot off the property line, it's supposed to be 7 or 10. It's an allowed use. The house is the problem, not the use. It just talks through about what happens with those. Can you expand open uses of land or the structure? Pretty much we're not going to allow any expansions to structures. Non-conforming sites. So sometimes we have, and I think that's probably more for Woodfin and moving forward, honestly, Linda, you'd probably be interested in this, and Larry, we've talked about like landscaping commercial areas up against residential uses. If we were to change our landscaping standards in the future, if we were to move forward to requiring parking lot landscaping or street trees, right? This is going to be real critical because we'll make the sites non-conforming. We'll say that you don't have street trees. You don't have vehicle use area landscaping. You don't have screening behind your building between you and the R10 area. How do I address it? When do I address it? How do we bring them into compliance? So we'll be looking, one, is if they're expanding the use of land. So if they're going to add on to the parking lot, then that's going to trigger some site requirements.
So they're okay until they want to make a change?
Yeah, I want to make a change.
I got it.
If they want to make substantial improvements to the building, so if it's like a major renovation, they're going to gut the building and they're going to spend 100% renovation value, then we're going to ask them to do some site improvements with landscaping and screening behind the building. That's what that substantial, lesser, and renovation are. It's just a way to kind of nudge big projects so that there's just a big parking lot or lighting that just glares into a residential neighborhood. So just make you.
So you haven't actually tried that yet? I mean-
No, we don't have any
Okay.
mechanism to do that right now. There's nothing in the code that says if I have a commercial strip center, and if they were to come in and gut it, unless they tore it down to the ground, I have nothing to tweak that, to make them install a bit of
Interesting to see
landscape.
how that would change Weaverville Road.
Yeah, it would take a long time to get something, but we could start the path. And one of the things we'll make sure too is like, we can try to get some sidewalks in where substantial renovations trigger. Long term, if we start looking at where that sidewalk threshold is, it could at some point come into play. And then there's non-conforming uses about if you cease it. This is kind of where our code is right now about non-conforming use. Basically, if you stop doing it for 108 days, you can't start it back. this board and then town council to do that.
I can just imagine some kind of a family tragedy of a family-run business.
Yeah,
You know, somebody dies, the parents die, who own it, the children have to go through, you know,
the will, probate stuff.
et cetera, and then, but they still are trying to
Yeah.
move it forward.
I think it's something like that crazy, unusual, it probably would be something we could say that they were, maintaining that. I mean, I hate to say it, if somebody ceased operations completely in a family business, they're probably, without some sort of continuity of running under the estate, they're probably sunk anyway because they've lost all their customers. But, yeah, I think it'd be something we could think about. And I'll say this though, I wrote this in here, I don't feel like there's probably like a lot of non-conforming uses in town that would probably be. But it's zoned correctly, it's HI. Well, right now, our standards, we have no landscaping standards for that. Had to get stormwater approval for that, for outdoor storage, but there's no standards for that, and they don't actually abut residential zoning down there. They're an island of HI bound by the river and the road. And
Right.
so we don't really, our screening and landscaping standards are not really robust. It kind of addresses property line to property line,
But not what they do on it.
but not on it. And so, if they butted up against R10, then we'd have a 15-foot screening yard.
Right.
Would be all we'd have. And we don't really have I'll tell you the truth, we don't really have a planning rate specified.
And utilities have different exceptions than commercial and industrial, correct?
Well, no, not really. I mean,
They follow the same standards.
they, pretty much like the Duke Power Substation, it's just that use is allowed, and for whatever reason, our code enumerates that a substation or a pump station, even in in heavy industrial, has to have a SUP. I think that's, to me personally, I think that's a little bit excessive to not have like telephone exchanges or a substation at HI. I mean, if we've made, as a town, a land use decision to say that this property should be a heavy industrial, the most obnoxious or most like the most back of house operations that you need to support your area, this land is suitable for that, then why would you need an SUP on top of that for a substation? Really, I mean, I could see that maybe it was something like a rock quarry, asphalt plant, where the smells and odors and vibrations could carry across the town, but a substation, now I could see, yes, in R10, R7 having a SUP, yes, but yeah, down there, they had to get stormwater approval from the county and a grading permit, but there's not, as far as the town goes, there's no landscaping standards for parking lots right now, or storage areas. And then, so just other nonconformities, one thing we did have about mobile home parks, we brought that over. We did address individual lots, so that the one home on its own lot, we're just saying that basically you can replace a single wide with a single wide or better. So you can go with, we have an ABC, so we're saying that you can, that'll upgrade as long as you don't go down or create other setback problems. Pointing back to lighting for nonconformities on lighting and signs. And then we make provisions for maintenance and repair. And then, Scott, family-owned business burns down due to electrical fire. We have a provision here that says, in the event of casualty or a flood, somebody could reestablish the business even if it was destroyed by some accident or and just reestablish it. So we're making sure that we add that provision, because that occasionally happens. I've seen where cars drive into buildings and the business is in insurance and the building is in the setback where the use is not allowed, and they're shut down for 6 to 9 months because of a fire or that. We're just saying we're going to provide that as a very extenuating circumstance. It's not worth being punitive. So some standards for that. And then, of course, a bunch of definitions we're adding, love definitions. We're adding things about what dimensional nonconformity means, expansion, impact, lawful nonconformity, nonconforming open use land, nonconforming structure, use. And I've added recently substantial damage and substantial improvement. So, all right, any questions on nonconformity? I wanted to talk about it more, but I know that it's more theoretical section. It really is, until you actually have, like, let's say we took Silverline and worked through a problem like that, you'd actually have to have a case to work through. And it makes no sense in a theoretical basis. You can't understand it. You have to have a real example. They get choked here.
You do get excited about this, don't you?
I do. I live and breathe it. I have a whole list of things. I've got a list on a spreadsheet of like 35 things of the code to tweak. That's what I say. I've got so many others. I got a whole subdivision section that I've been working on rewriting for y'all. We took it off this round. It was just too much. So, sorry.
Are we gonna get a code enforcement official to push all this, follow this stuff?
Me and Maria work on it. We're just trying to get through it. All right, so steep slope, I think the biggest change initially is moving from chapter 40 to 54. So we'll have one chapter for referencing, especially for enforcement. Our penalties and enforcement are in chapter 54. Instead of pointing back and forth, we're just going to move it in. And it's going to be part of an updated Article 10, which is where it's flood prevention. We're just going to call that environmental standards, where it's steep slope and the flood, which we're not doing flood right now. The other big change is enhancing penalties for unpermitted land disturbance under there. And then we're going to add some flexibility on setbacks if you reduce the grading. I think y'all like that. We have also specified additional site plan and pre-inspection requirements. We're also stating new trees are to be large, maturing, native. And then tree maintenance to follow ANSI standards. Right now, we just talk about tree removal, but we don't really talk about tree care. And then we also at late break, you must clarify that adding that retaining walls are considered stacked or tiered when basically the horizontal distance between walls is 1-to-1. So right now we say you can only have stacked or tiered retaining walls up to 12 feet tall. So if you come over here and build me a 6-foot wall and you come over 2 feet and do a 6-foot wall, that's a 12-foot wall, right? But what happens if you need to build a wall down here 30 feet, 10 foot tall? What does that mean? Like where's the tiered at? So we're just saying, if you build a 10-foot wall, anything within 10 feet of that counts. If you go 30 feet up the slope, you can have another 10-foot wall. It's fine. Just keep in mind that it's not really going to help too much with land disturbance. I mean, they're still subject to their land disturbance steep slope. It's not really a way of gaming. There might be a way that somebody could work up some heights, but retaining walls are expensive, but we also know that some people will pay for a view.
The bullet, if you leave that slide that's right behind you, the
Yeah.
bullet that is the 1, 2, 3, the flexibility for setback
Yeah.
exchange, is that a result of that one, the couple that we had in here who were needed their driveway to be able to go up the slope, and if they,
It probably wouldn't have helped on them. We've had actually
it would have
I've talked to-
solved their problem, right?
Yeah,
You know?
it wouldn't have helped them. We've had a couple of properties come in where they've been permitted by right, they could meet the standard, but what happens because the road's high and they're going down the hill, if you're R21 or R43, it puts you at like 25 and 35 feet front setbacks. And we all know that as you push down a hill, that's just more fill in front. And I think, Scott, you might say it's like when you cut a little bit down here, like when you go 10 feet this way, that's not necessarily 10 feet that way. Sometimes it's 30 feet that way. And we've had some ask, they said, if you could let us have 10 less feet of front setback, we can sometimes get a lot less grading area, and we'll have better heights. Like, they're sometimes got 45, 50-foot tall rear heights. The front of the house is 22 feet, but the back of the house is 50. And so now I'm playing the up and high-low game again to get to 35. They meet it, but can be very tall. And sometimes just that incremental 10 foot this way can shorten that height profile more than 10 feet. It can make a big difference. So it's more like, we'll give you 10 feet if you'll give up 10% of grading area, whatever you're allowed. So in this case, if you come 10 foot forward, you might lose 1,300 square feet of grading. It's a little bit of a trade, but we're giving up something as far as the front setback, but we're getting.
Their situation was actually the opposite of that.
Yeah, they just needed more grading. There was, I honestly, I don't know, outside of the variance, I don't know what else to do, buy another lot.
Right, yeah,
Yes.
that was the right thing for them to do, was grade it the way that they did, but it was disturbing more.
Yeah,
But
I mean, personally, Ricky thinks that was the right decision to make, but that's Ricky speaking, just because I don't think there was actions, part of that road development, that if that subdivision be built today, we wouldn't be facing that, because we would have captured all that up front, but they were just kind of, somebody's got to deal with that lot. I mean, that's the end of the day, that lot's going to get built on today or in 5 years, and this board's going to have to deal with it. So, again, so Article 10 is environmental standards, and so just renumbering. Some of this is cut and paste for steep slope here on the front end, all that kind of preamble stuff. Again, renumbering, how we calculate grade, applicability, all the same. Definitions. I did add one here, critical root zone, just specifying how you define that, because sometimes people grade into you got a 20-inch oak tree and they grade 5 feet from it, and they're like, well, we didn't cut the tree down. It's like, well, you've killed the tree. I mean, you killed the tree. It just doesn't know it's dead yet. So we want to try to provide that. Again, the white definitions are still in here. We already have them. They're just going to get folded. They're just going to still be here. We're clarifying what a regulated tree is. It's a caliper of 3 inches or more when measured 6 inches above the root ball in any mature grouping of rhododendron or mountain laurel over 250 square feet.
I think there's a typo in there.
Oh, if there is, let me know.
You got an extra of, mean all native trees of with.
Okay. All right, all right, I'll get that then. I'll get the typo. So we're just clarifying, so if somebody cuts down a sapling in their backyard, that's not something we're gonna send an NOV for. We're just gonna clarify, but that's. The other thing too we talked about was making sure that there's been sometimes you'll see this rash about cutting down dead trees or dying trees, and people want to cut them down because it's a threat. And so what we're saying, we want to define what a snag is, and we're also proposing that snags should be left at least 3 inches in diameter and 6 feet tall, because there's a wildlife benefit. And so not every dead tree needs to come out. So, you know, if it's over your house right here, it probably does need to come down. It's going to get you. But if you've got 5 acres or an acre and a half lot and it's down 100 feet from your house and it's not representing a threat to you in a garden or someone on a walking trail, they're going to ask you to leave it alone and not have a tree removal on it. So what we just kind of mentioned is that to ensure that minimum requirements of most wildlife species are being met, 3 snags of 12 inches or greater should be available per acre. So we're saying that, and then a minimum of 115 dBH or greater dead trees should remain per acre as well. So we're just giving guidance to people that, you know, recognizing that some people might have pine beetles get and kill a bunch. Maybe it's prudent to take some of that out, but just because one oak tree reaches the end of life and it's going out, we don't necessarily need to take that tree out because there are some wildlife benefits to that. So that's.
So if they come and ask for a permit to take it down, you will deny? Is that
I
what
would
you're
not,
saying?
especially if there's not proof that that tree is posing an imminent life. Now, if it's over a road, driveway, house, walking trail, then yeah, I don't want anybody to get hurt. We don't want anybody to get hurt. And I've always told people in the past, or like, if they're like coming, they're like, I got this tree and I need to get a permit to take it down. I'm like, is it like over your driveway? They're like, yes. I'm like, please do not wait on a permit from us if that thing's going to fall and hit somebody. I do not want to see anybody die or a car crushed because they're waiting on a permit from the zoning guy. I couldn't sleep at night knowing that I was holding up somebody or somebody's spouse or child died because a tree fell. And there was a tragic accident here recently, somewhere in another state, where a kid got out of a car and a tree fell on him. He's like 12-year-old. A healthy tree, but it's sad it happens, but trees are scary. I don't drive around town anymore outside in windstorms. I quit. This job's ruined me. It really has.
Biltmore had two this year.
Yeah, I mean, it does.
The car and the lady walking.
Yeah, and it's remarkable the numbers of people killed by trees, so I think because I do this, I'm just so aware that I won't go out when the wind's blowing. And trees in Asheville for some reason are weird. So anyway, steep slope, we're just clarified too that lot of record on or before February 22nd. It doesn't prohibit it. There's that height here on number 3, as described elsewhere in the code, or definition if we approve it. Setbacks, Chris, about the reduction. May approve reductions in front setbacks from 30 to 20 in R43 and R21 when it results in reducing the site grading by 10% or more in previously undisturbed areas. So some lots out there are fully graded. We're not going to let you pretend not. Based on the allowance provided in the subsection below in D. And this one here I need to get that down there. That's got to be, that didn't get saved. I got to move that down. No change to that area. Geotech, screening. Minimum tree size we have is 1.5 inch, but we're also saying 75% of all new trees must be a large maturing species. Right now it says trees. So we're just clarifying it's large maturing.
Ricky, out of curiosity, that pre-construction,
Yeah.
we're going to check out trees before that. Is this something that we're going to do in-house in the township, or are you going to have them hire an actual contractor or vendor to do that?
We're going to go out and do a pre-inspection. So basically what we're going to do is before we issue the zoning permit, we're going to be looking for them to put up the delineation of fencing, whether it be the silt fencing or a tree protection fencing if they're not needing a grading permit to identify that limits. Because, unfortunately, everybody's specialized and you've got design professionals, they're having conversations with our team, and that project doesn't get to the guy on the excavator or grading contractor out in the field. And sometimes there's 3 or 4 sets of plans floating out. And unless he has something specifically that's stretched on the ground for the guy on the equipment, he's not being given that information. It comes up too frequently for us to keep ignoring it. And that's what happened one time is that, some people plead ignorance. Sometimes I think it's,
Whoops.
whoops, we kind of made one too many passes. Sometimes so I don't know, sometimes I feel like it's intentional, I can't say it is, but sometimes it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. So there's that, and we're just saying that for those, and this right here is for like screening, so you're building a house, you're allowed to it, you gotta have that planar surface, and the retaining wall, we're just saying it's 75%, you can't do red buds to death, like we need something large maturing to actually screen the house. Going down, all this is being carried over in white.
And all of this is, anything new or the steep slope stuff is, people are grandfathered in for that, or no?
No, they're not. So if you have an existing house or an existing lot, when you do new developments, if you have a steep house already and you want to expand your driveway, I need all that information. I need to calculate your grading area and your impervious area. This is potential you can't expand your driveway. Or construct a new outbuilding. But if you have a brand new lot, then I'm going to have to get all the impervious. Granted, you have a lot of these you've seen, they're acre lots, half-acre lots. They don't meet the minimum lot size. Well, that is what it is. The lots were legally established, but they still got to meet that grading standard. Under I, adding snags as a preservation of vegetation. We just want to make sure that people understand that snags are important. So this is new in red, the zoning permit required. So the white was original, but we're adding more information about the site itself and regulated trees, limits of disturbance. We want to see the critical root zone. We want to see where those underground utilities are going. Sometimes people live that off, you know, for water and sewer, sometimes through the country. And the location of the tree protection fencing with a detail. And that pre-construction meeting with the town will be scheduled prior to commencing any work on the site. So Maria, I mean, we have permits, but we're not so busy that we can't make a visit to a site and go look to see if that orange protected fencing matches what's proposed, what we approved. I mean, 5 minutes would save us hours of work on the back end. And I just, oddly enough, I included explanatory, I can't see the word, explanation note here about native trees and snags in here about, and that hazardous snags should be cut to a height as close to 10 feet as deemed safe to remove the fallen hazard. So we already got some guidance about if you need to take it out, we'd at least like to keep it down at least a 10-foot tall snag. So there's a little bit of guidance further about the snag. I tried to do some little bit of work from other jurisdictions about what they had, some wildlife. Implementation of physical protection required, about the pre-construction conference, tree protection, and ANSI standards, protective barrier, and then restrictions within the protected area about not putting signs up, using tree trucks as a backstop, winch support, power poles. You can't do that with the trees. Anything about those added things, clarifications for steep slope, okay? So now enforcement and penalties, we're just pointing back that your violation, you're subject to enforcement penalties. It's still an NOV. We moved penalties right here. That looks like it disappeared, but it didn't. We moved it down. We made it repeat violation here. For every violation that occurs with 1 year receipt of a notice for a previous offense, we left that there. We moved penalties down here. We just said the town. So we kept one as violations except for tree removal. It's $100 a day. That's what we have right now. For tree removal and unpermitted grading, we're proposing a civil penalty of $1,000 for the action for the first 100 square feet of grading, plus 35 cents for each square foot thereafter.
Can I just ask, is that the same as Asheville?
No, Asheville doesn't even have that. Actually, I think.
How about Weaverville?
I lifted that right from Raleigh. You don't know where I got that from Raleigh. They had that calculation. Found that. I like the fact that they addressed not only, that's if you can't find the trees and stumps, because also we run into that recently where somebody had a whoops, and when we went out, there was no trees or stumps. There was a site plan that we had that identified 7 or 8 trees that were supposed to be protected, were gone. But all we were left with was $100 per day for a notice of violation, but you can't do anything because they have 30 days to respond. And once they respond, we will do a remediation plan. I don't have no instant hammer. I don't have a media hammer. So that's why we need something that says that if you do this, you're still held liable. There's not really there's still pay to play. I mean, there's people out there with resources that can do that. We know that. But I don't really have much. So under 3, we're saying where the trees and stumps are still present, we're going to do $1,000 for the first tree, and then it's going to be $100 per diameter inch or for any other tree stumps 3 inches or larger. So we'll go out and measure every tree that's at least 3 inches or larger, and we're going to charge them $100 per inch. And so we'll add that up. So if there's 300 inches of trees, it's 1,000 plus 3,000 for that. That's the fine. And then we also require restoration or remediation. So they're going to have to, basically every tree that they either topped, pruned too heavily, or damaged somehow, they've got to replace it with a tree of equal caliper. So clearly, if you get a 20-inch oak and you cut down the 20-inch oak, you can't find a 20-inch oak. But we're going to ask you to replant it with 20 inches worth of tree. So that might be 10 2-inch oaks or a mixture of large maturing vegetation. So you're going to have to not only pay the fines, you're going to have to replant. And this is our part of our rate, is the same caliper of tree. And then we would be looking for, they got to be at least 2-inch caliper, 75% large maturing, native to Western North Carolina. We'll get that spelled out. Located where the disturbance action actually occurs. You can't go and try to put it somewhere. It's going to be back to where, because maybe you were trying to get a view. We can't get that view back. We can't get that swinging back immediately, but we can kind of like say, hey, we need to protect that slope. It goes on to say that they have to be planted in an area of at least 200 square feet with a minimum dimension of 8 feet from other trees, so we're not got clustering in one area. And if you don't have enough land area under D and cannot be planted on it, then you'll have to make a replacement fee of $100 per caliper inch shall be paid to a town. So you get a fine at the top, right? Civil penalty of either grading or tree removal based on the inch of the tree of the grading area. Still replace all the trees. And then at the end, if you can't get all the trees, we're still going to get a secondary kind of payment at the back end. So it's not just, we run out of room. There's 150 inches of tree we can't plant. It's like, well, you'll have to figure out $1,500 write a check town of Woodfin for that. So that's kind of, so we're kind of got immediate penalties, restoration, and then some sort of like payment at the end if you can't complete everything. Because some sites
They can't cut a 20-inch tree and just stick a 2-inch and replace it and call it quits.
Yeah.
No, tree for tree. That's good that you came up with this, so that's good.
Yeah, well, I'd say I didn't do the original. Raleigh had this. It's good that Raleigh had it because they just went through a major code rewrite there. They've got some pretty good city attorneys in Raleigh, pretty well vetted. So I felt like this would be a pretty good response to, if somebody, does something by accident, there's extenuating circumstances, they can't always appeal to this board. They could always ask for a variance for the grading area. I can't stop them from that, but anyway.
Well, I am bothered by the fact that Asheville and Weaverville, and what does Buncombe County do?
I don't even know what they do. I mean,
Probably nothing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just am a little nervous that we're going, to $1,000 when there's nothing like that around here. I mean, I get where you're going, and I think it's admirable that we want to, preserve these trees. I just wish, and communication is just so bad in this town. And so it's like, half of my neighborhood is lots of woods, and, I think you're going to have Bear Bridge Hills on your case very fast.
If y'all think the minimum is $1,000 is high, if you think it should be $500, for the first, that's
As far as I'm concerned, just because no one else is doing it around here, I think 500 would be good. But,
But like Ricky said, the people with the deep pockets are gonna say, oh, I'll just pay you the fine and I'll just cut it all down. So this puts a little bit of bite in the.
The only thing is I will say, I agree, the only thing I have to say, Linda, is occasionally you will run somebody that doesn't know steep slope rules, that have an existing house and cuts a tree down.
That's right.
That will cut a tree, or they may cut a dying tree down that is in their backyard that they feel like is a threat to their kids' play structure.
I had a neighbor, not one that I'm particularly fond of, that took down 2 dead trees a couple weeks ago. Great big 2 dead trees. And from what you've just said, they might not have been able to get it approved.
Yeah.
And another took down one that he thought was going to fall in his house, and that one was not dead, I don't think.
Yeah.
Ever since you started this, I've been watching to see what
Yeah.
people are doing.
And if you want me to, I can also look at like existing homes or something that I've seen.
I don't know. I just wish we had, a better way of communicating, because as I said at one point, I think the last meeting, we still have people putting their recycling out every week because they haven't paid attention to
Yeah, I understand.
And
You can't fix stupid. I just don't care how hard you try, you can't do it.
Well, but I'm not
But-
sure the tree stuff falls exactly in that
Well,
category.
Yeah, but making a statement like this, the word, if that happens to somebody, the word will get out pretty
Yes.
quick.
Yeah, but not all of them can afford it. I mean,
That's
I'm
right.
not saying that my
That's
neighborhood
right.
couldn't afford it.
I think some of the people that this would be directed toward would be more on big, neighborhood developments or new
construction.
construction that, they're gonna come through and be clearing the side of a mountain. And
Well, clearing the side of the mountain, no, but I can think of some along Mills Place that aren't particularly affluent, that some of this would apply to, that Michael Rice, you probably don't know who he even is. I mean, he's, and he's lived there forever. He's not,
Yeah. And there's always that thing of, I'm glad you said it, I mean, it's something to be thinking about, because it's something we've not talked, because we've been focused on new development and that, and some people with higher, deeper pockets that be upset by the charge, but maybe it's
but
not going to impact their
houses in my
payment.
neighborhood, though, originally sold, some of them for like 250,
Yeah.
300,000. They didn't sell for what they're,
Yeah.
what they're selling for today. It's a big
And that's
difference.
fine, if y'all like it in general, we can, and you can always also include like a motion too, that we investigate, like, if there's something or hesitation on the 1,000, or if you wanna,
Well, how many, you guys are all okay with 1,000?
So,
You gotta put some bite in it, you gotta put a deterrent. If you don't put a deterrent, people are just gonna do
But your
it.
neighborhood doesn't have any of these
I'm not in
issues.
steep slope. I'm at
No, I know.
2,100 feet.
Who
I'm
else,
not in-
anybody here in steep slope
Yeah, but it
besides my
doesn't-
neighborhood?
But I think it's a good idea, because you see across the mountains, they're just wiping out all the trees. I think this is a wonderful idea to prevent that from happening, because once it's gone, you can't put them
But
back
that's a
up.
developer that comes in and does that, though. That's not the
No, I have the
individuals
same
who are
point.
buying.
So I wish you would do this for all elevations,
Yeah.
because I'm in Riverwalk, and I'm on the board of directors, and I'm fighting battles every day, because people, I can't see the river, and they want to cut all the trees down. I keep saying, no, that's green open space, you can't touch. So we've been fighting the battle. Everybody just wants to cut all the trees down, and I said, you can't cut the trees down. So this is good for steep slope. I wish we could do it for across the boards, but I think it's a great idea.
I love the idea as well. I actually was thinking a higher number than 1,000. And at the same time, I definitely understand the other piece, a family that lives down below me, if we were on steep slope, they don't pay attention to anything happening in the town. They wouldn't know a single rule. They've been around there for, 50 years. They're gonna do what they're gonna do. And so then they're gonna cut down that tree for whatever, because
'Cause that's
they
what
wanted
they-
to. Whether it was dead or alive, it's on their property. They're gonna cut it
Yeah.
down because they wanted to plant something
Then
else
we
or.
have the code enforcement official, if we get one someday, then they come in, they get fined. And once, like somebody said, once word gets out, then people were gonna get the word that you can't do this.
It could have happened to 50 other people, they still wouldn't have known. That's, some people, their heads in the sand.
Emails, and
so
some
there's-
people won't even give us their email addresses to
And
communicate.
it's out of ignorance, not out, it's out of ignorance, not,
Old-timers that,
yeah, not out of a desire to do harm. It's just simply,
that's what they know.
It's been this way for years, and
yeah,
that's what
and
I'm
so
gonna do.
I feel like we've got to have something, if it's possible, to allow for, a real, oops, I really had no idea.
But that is up to Ricky, like, and I think, so if somebody has a tree that they want to cut down, they come to the township, they get a permit, they can cut it down. They don't go, this is for the bad people who don't listen. And if they do it by accident, I guess it's a little bit of common sense, whether we're going to levy a fine or not, we got to use it case by
really
case.
don't have
by
common
case.
sense to apply. That's where the rules, law, I don't have common sense to apply, but I can talk to Shannon tomorrow and see if there's we can develop a policy or something about,
Well,
Fine.
the other thing I would ask, if you know the neighborhoods that are most impacted, there should be a real effort to actually host a meeting in that neighborhood and invite people to come in and listen to what you're going to do. Because I don't think all neighborhoods are impacted the same way.
Maybe there needs
Put
to
out a
be things
notice.
in mail, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
just
that
regular
zonings,
updates.
zoning changes have been made, and
we do have I think they're looking at doing another one of the newsletters. And I think
I don't
Shannon was
think the
thinking-
newsletter is as good as a letter, a specific letter to residents about that issue, because
Right,
people
it would be
may or may not read
Special,
the
a specialized
newsletter.
notice, you know.
And I can ask Shannon, because I don't know if they're going to do a mailing
Update
about
to
the
the-
stormwater fees and stuff like that, how that's going out. So I'll see what we can do. If very least, like Linda, up in your neighborhood, if I need to go up there and we need to
Well,
figure
we
out.
could have a meeting, and we wouldn't get everybody, but, I think we could get most of the people, and we have
Probably.
woods everywhere, so it's kind of like,
Telling people stuff like that, the news is gonna spread too.
Yeah, I mean, we have Reynolds Mountains Association, some Versant Matana, so we might have good get that group out.
see, we don't have an HOA, so there's no,
So I'll talk to Shannon more. Maybe if we just need to do some targeted mailings, it might be as simple as using the zoning layer.
I think the letter would be okay, and that would go to the people who won't give us their email addresses.
Yeah, so, because your neighborhood and some of that, like roll on Naples and Sunny Ridge, right here on the
Sunny
shoulder.
Ridge, yeah, Sunny Ridge is another one. They're
That-
probably even worse off than we are with
Yeah, so
woods.
that area right in there might concern me the most.
Those are older, those were built in the 90s, I think. I don't,
And so with this, if I'm building $1 million house or a $3 million house, I don't give a flying flahoobie about $5,000 or
That's true.
$10,000. And so, yeah, I'm gonna cut straight down and get my line of sight. And by the time those trees I've had to plant in front of me are grown big enough,
Yeah.
I'll have moved on anyway.
Yeah.
So I would love to see those multiplied by 5 or 10.
Okay.
Wow.
I don't think we have that many places that have those kind of homes, though. Reynolds Mountain's probably it. But other than that, I don't know what Olivet I haven't been to Olivet.
That's not.
I
they're
think
not-
it gets people's attention,
Yes.
though, the developers, the people buying oh, we really got to pay attention to this. This is really going to hurt.
I think, would it make sense to have separate clauses for new development and existing? Because you're talking mostly about existing and doing something to what's there, and then if we're building a whole new, you're building a $3 million home on whatever that thing is that has a huge giant wall. What's the name of that mountain? Where they're cutting down every single tree? Are they still?
But if I go in and I buy a home in this neighborhood,
Right.
it's an existing home, I want the view.
There's no view in my neighborhood.
I'm just saying, in whatever,
There's
but
I know.
I'm just thinking, are there different situations that should have different guidelines? Or
I think the
different
rule should be the
fines?
rule. I mean, I know it's in Nashville, but over on Beaver Lake, they just built that new house right on a lake. They just clear cut every single tree in the front of that
Right.
house. It's gone.
Right.
2 weeks ago, they were there, and now today they're gone. They're all
Yep.
gone.
It's not steep slope, though.
What's that?
That's not steep slope in Asheville either.
That's
Right.
right. But I think I think the rules should go for everybody. I mean, because otherwise you're gonna say you're being discriminated against because they can do it, but we can't do it. I mean, you gotta be fair. And I think
I do, it
Scott's
would be
got
a
good
lot
idea.
easier if
Just go
Asheville
by,
and
somebody's
you should
house
tell
is
your
already
friends in
there.
Asheville to
Want to buy and cut all the trees down.
join you.
News was.
I was the guy over at Asheville that done all the tree stuff.
That house on
to do it.
Marymount you're talking about was limited for height. It couldn't go but so high. So that's why they dug out that basement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's.
And believe me, I want to, if I lived there, I want to have that view too, but rules are the rules.
Yeah,
you know?
that's.
so if I want that view and I can't get the view, then maybe I don't need to buy that house.
So it sounds to
Somebody
me
that
like
doesn't
you
want
have
the
to
view.
say to the board that there really was disagreement and that probably the majority favored 1,000
Or higher, yeah. 1,000.
or higher.
Yeah, all right, but I will convey, me and Shane will talk, I've got that, is concerned about impact, yeah.
I would call that the ouch factor.
Yeah.
What is the ouch factor?
I mean, I think these numbers you put in there should be bare bones minimum.
Uh-huh.
If you want to go up with it, have at it, but at least it's a deterrent.
For the average Joe and Josephine.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I mean, if somebody's building a $3 million house, it's peanuts, but
My AC's broken at home, so I'm soaking it up. I'm gonna go home and
don't just stay here till midnight.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry it's been long, but and I'm glad I didn't put subdivision on this one. I won't tackle on as many next time we try to tackle that. So anyway, so far staff does recommend the approval of text amendments as proposed. I've taken some notes here, and so I can make a few other tweaks. I will tell you that of the bulk of these, we're not looking at these going into town council until October at the earliest, the mid-October meeting. The only one that may be going sooner will be the steep slope one here, particularly because of penalties and things like that. So that'll probably be the first one I'll be working on with Shannon this week, is getting that. So we're targeting to go to town council on September 19th for the steep slope portion of that, of this text amendment group, with the rest slow rolling a little bit more. So I do have a suggested motion for you here. Some additional conditions. I know we can put in here, I'll just skip ahead, spoiler. So there's the three comprehensive plan statements that would go along with the motion. But I do know that very beginning on ADUs, there was one condition we was concerned about ADUs. Glenda, I was thinking, what was it we was talking about with ADUs?
I wanted the standards, the
water
health
septic.
department standards.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about differences for lots over a certain size.
The size of accessory structure placement, yeah,
Yeah.
And there was a question on that 800 square foot.
yeah.
That was the only thing I remember.
Yeah, 800. Yeah, we talked about 800, about chicken and egg. So if you had a 600 square foot house, you built 800, I hope that answered, I'll go back. Like if you wanted to build something bigger than the existing home in front, the ADU in front, it happened to be the 600 square foot house and you want to build 800 ADU, then you either have to build the principal house in front of the existing home or you just can't do it because the ADU can't be in front of the principal dwelling. So I think that might be our intermediate answer. And if the board's okay with it, I'll come back, Chris, with y'all. We'll investigate accessory structures in the whole for everything. So we're not bifurcating out just ADUs, but look at all like garages, carports, pools, pole barns, and say if you're over 3 acres, 5 acres, whatever, we don't care about where it goes. We just don't care. Because your lot's so large, you're not going to be disrupting the street form, and it doesn't really matter on that case.
I wonder if we're ready to try to craft language at this point with the additional blah, 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 or whether we need to just bring it back anyway with suggestions from you and Shannon,
Yes,
with the notes, and then we in large part agreed to almost all of it, but there was enough meat to the other pieces. I think it'll take a little bit of time
yeah.
to come up with something that we could.
Okay. So which ones y'all think you want to pull out? Are y'all wanting to pull back on all of them right now, hold till October and look at it again?
Well, the
Or-
ones that we had,
ADU and steep slope?
yeah, those two, did we have concerns or additions to the others at all?
Not to height, not
I don't think
to,
so.
Not about
Yeah.
no, not,
So
yeah.
let's pull those two out, and
Okay.
then,
I'll just say that I know council was really strongly interested in the steep slope one. That's all I'll say on that
Well,
one.
even if we prove them now,
Yeah.
we can, it goes back and make adjustments to them, right?
Yeah, we
Having
can.
nothing, we're wide open to
Yeah, right,
many
negative or
appeals.
what, yeah. So I don't mind pulling ADU back, that's fine, we can hold that back, because that's really, this is all, I initiated, picked this as one to initiate, all these are really staff initiated, except really, I'll just tell you steep slope. Steep slope was the one that
Okay.
really needed, but with the steep slope, let's talk through that one.
Did we even have, what recommendations did we have for changing on that one?
on steep slopes,
It's really just the fines,
there's some
wasn't it?
discussion about
On the
fines.
fine. Aside from that, was that it? I'm trying to think back. if there
Yeah,
were
no, I
any
think
other-
that was it.
The fine, just the fine amount.
And we don't have a problem with it in the general consensus, that stay where it is or higher, we just don't want to go lower,
Yeah.
in the general consensus.
I think basically I heard like you thought it should be
Sure.
at least
Majority.
1,000
Thank you.
or
I see that.
higher, generally speaking, with some sort of like,
And a real emphasis on communicating with the
Communicating,
neighborhoods
yes.
affected.
Yeah, reach out on that. And then maybe also, I heard, maybe if there's some sort of like, somehow we could, like, if the average person that done this, that's in like a existing neighborhood of Woodfin, this existing house that's been here for 30 years, and they cut a tree down, not in like a active, like we talk about Naples or Sunny Ridge, where people may not be as aware of steep slopes, because it's fairly new, it's a year and a half
Well,
old.
and I think it's different when you're talking about a single tree that gets taken down versus clear cutting.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're not talking clear cutting.
I'm
Would
just
it-
thinking of like, you're like a 70-year-old country boy who's just always done all that himself. He doesn't have the money to pay a tree company.
$1,000.
He just goes to the garage and gets a chainsaw and always takes care of it himself, and then his neighbor turns him in, and
Now, they're probably not steep slope, though.
probably not,
Yeah,
but,
It's
you know,
gonna happen.
Yeah, no,
that's what keeps coming to my mind is somebody like
Sure.
that who's,
His hunting
he
cabin
doesn't
could
have
be up on
internet, he
steep
still
slope.
reads the paper, and,
And
there's still a lot of people out there like
yeah,
that.
so here's a thought is, could we have some stipulation about the town in order to provide, in order to find, we can put the onus on the town that we've got to prove that we notified them maybe in 3 ways, or 3 different times,
care about
or.
3 ways, I just know
But
that
just
communicating is
that
good.
communication did absolutely get to them,
Right,
and we have to prove that in order to fine.
I like that, but I know
That's
that,
it'll be expensive from a mailing standpoint, which probably had to do
Well,
registered
What
mail.
I'll do is I can talk to Shane.
It's head down.
I'm sorry, Larry, I interrupted you.
Go ahead, I'm good.
I know my example's probably not.
No,
what's
no,
gonna
no,
happen.
your example is exactly what's going to happen. Your example is what's going to happen.
Got 24 houses in
What I'll do is
there.
I'll talk to Shannon.
The
I have
Sunny
seen in the
Ridge is-
past where sometimes there's like an allowance of maybe up to 500 square feet of
I don't know how many.
land disturbance, tree removal,
Only half of
like
mine
within a
is-
set period, whether that be every 3 years, every 5 years, or maybe we just allow a single 500 square foot of disturbance. So if somebody takes down a single tree or 2 trees that are whatever, then it's sort of like, okay, you cut down a tree on an existing lot, we're not going to really worry about that one. We'll document it, you got a permit after the fact.
Aren't there
It's-
junk trees that you want taken down? I mean, quite honestly, I see lots of junk trees.
Yeah, well,
in-
yeah, there's,
So this is somebody that cut down an old dead tree and just didn't know that they needed to come get permission.
yeah, and it's one tree. I'm just trying to, so maybe,
Like,
we'll-
before we started talking about this, I wouldn't have known that I needed to ask.
yeah.
Maybe we have an exception for Bradford pears, you can always.
You can always, yeah, you can always cut Bradford pear down. We will automatically be given permission to cut Bradford pear.
We'll pay you to, we'll take the fine.
Bradford
and-
pears and,
You had an idea, though. Basically, if you had, you've got to exceed some square footage of disturbance or number of trees cut that is allowable within, some amount. So you get a number, you get like 3 oopses during a 5-year period,
or just allow us to just do something.
whatever it is, yeah, some allowance.
Yeah.
And then
Right.
beyond that, though, then you're getting the major,
yeah,
cleaning up of a whole property.
Right.
You've exceeded the limit right off the
And,
bat. or
and native
new
species,
development.
something about native species. If you're cutting down native species,
Yeah.
if
We
you're
would
cutting
not-
down invasive species.
Yeah, and so we don't include invasive. So if somebody was to cut down, wanting to cut down 10 tree of heaven, go to town. Like,
Yeah.
get rid of them and then replant. We would never cite you for tree of heaven or anything invasive like that's, we're going to always allow that removal, even if it's steep slope, because you just need to come with a replanting plan, but that's, because they are invasive and destructive, so we're not going to do that. But yeah, okay, Chris, I'll talk, that's the only thing I think of is maybe allowance and come up with something for it. Properties that were developed prior to a certain horizon date, maybe 500 square feet, and just require them to replant with 1-for-1 tree, if it's a, tree or something. I'll dig into that if y'all want me to put that as a recommendation, something
And
loosely.
notice,
And notice, yeah, we'll,
Notices and some sort of allowances.
I think we have to be cautious on how graceful we want to get, though, how gracious, I should say.
yeah, it can be.
I agree.
Because if you give them a little bit, then they're
No,
gonna,
but how about on the other side of the river? Do any of you guys live on the other side of the
The
river?
west side? I do.
You do, okay. When you first go across, aren't there some older neighborhoods that, where you're going up a slope?
That's kind of what I was picturing.
Yeah.
is
That's right.
Those
Some of
are,
those and those people might be on fixed incomes, and you slap them with a fine, and they're gonna, you know.
Yeah, so the one thing about
Be the end of their world, and.
They're not, I don't think that's steep slope, though.
Yeah, the only
don't think
place,
they are?
no, west bank of the
Yeah,
river.
you're
the only-
probably right. There's probably not many of this kind of
Are
stuff
there any
in steep slope, but
Above
just.
22, is it
The
22?
only place west of the river, like on West Bank, is Crest Mountain. So Crest Mountain, that is the only steep slope area that we have.
Is that where the bluffs
I've
are?
never been there.
No, that's up at Crest
Yeah, I
Mountain,
know
Crest
where it
Center,
is,
up
but-
off Ben Lippin Road.
Wasn't that a development?
Off New
There's
Lesser
probably
Highway.
not a lot of trees on most of those
A
properties.
lot of those lots are wooded,
Some are
but
by-
those are, again, new development or houses that we could, there's a neighborhood
South
we
of
could reach
Ingalls.
out to.
Yeah, Irwin.
On
And then
that.
further down, on
We,
the
we
further
know
west of Irwin.
the developer of that property. I've got some contacts with those developers about
The bluffs
lots
are-
and stuff.
aren't
The
they steep
bluffs goes
slope?
along the river.
Yeah, but aren't they up on steep slope?
It's a very sloping property, but it doesn't
But
mean
the
it's
elevation
It's not the
is
elevation?
Bluffs
Okay.
isn't steep slope?
No, it's
Keep
not.
forgetting about the elevation part of it. I'm
No.
thinking,
It's
I'm
a
thinking
steep
the land
elevation.
like this, but not.
Right.
the
It's got some very rolling topography.
Changing the subject just a little bit, are we, I mean, this attorney, asked all of us a long time ago for a bunch of time commitments. Most of us have filled up a lot of that. What's the status of,
I'll ask Shane in the morning.
Yeah, I gave an email with. a
So
bunch
there
of
was an
dates.
email come out, so the previous days that we reserved are all gone. Brian sent an email and asked everybody a couple weeks ago for October, November dates. So you should have given Brian your October, November dates.
That where
I
you,
don't think he sent me one.
I don't think I got one.
Maybe he went to the old
Or I
committee.
need more to add by now.
That's okay, you
yeah,
guys
now
can do
it's,
it.
there's actually-
September, October?
we
think
should
it was
ask him to
September,
forward.
Okay,
it.
September, October. We got, I don't know, I got an email.
I did, but he might
It's
not
been a
have
while,
had
though.
your email addresses. And he asked for dates in October that wouldn't work.
Yeah, I got one from.
Yeah, which I think
I
is
never
really
heard anything
stupid
after
to do
that.
it that way, but,
Okay.
What's that?
I got one from Shannon.
All right,
not
let's-
the-
all right.
Oh.
Time out,
Okay,
let's,
so-
let's finish this first, let's get this motion.
Okay, so I guess you want to make a motion to approve the text amendment minus the accessory dwelling unit, right? I'll make sure I walk it out if I'm right. Minus the accessory dwelling unit, today, with the conditions that, the steep slope portion, provide, some sort of public engagement for affected properties and neighborhoods.
Public engagement, those are good words.
Yeah, and also an allowance for some sort of like tree removal or something of somewhere of a small area, maybe approximately 500 square foot. And is there a time frame or just ever 500 square foot for all of eternity, or 500 square foot every 5 years or something, with the requirement that a person replace the removed tree one for one?
Should probably be a time limit, because I can picture somebody knowledgeable taking that and cutting 3 trees this year, 3 trees next year, 3
Yeah, I
trees
was
next year,
thinking
and
like,
finally gone.
yeah, I would say like it's 500 square feet, and it's like 500 square feet, if it's written 500 square feet, I say that's forever, like till the end of time, 500 square feet. You don't even 500, or you could say 500 square feet, you get another reload in 5 years. Like if you do cut 3 trees today, that's it. And then you have to wait 5 years to do another 3.
Well, if we make it forever,
Yeah,
they'll get the point when they get hollered at.
yeah,
So you'll say, okay, you got hollered at, you did wrong, but we're gonna give you a get out of jail free card, but don't ever, ever, ever do it again.
yeah.
But we are gonna specify that some trees are eligible to be cut down.
Invasive
Okay,
trees are
because-
always, they don't go against it. Invasive trees never.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
And we just need a list of what those are versus native trees.
Yeah.
Contact the town for a list of invasive
Yeah.
trees if you need it.
Yeah, so yeah, if it's something invasive, not ever going to, I'm not gonna count their 500 square foot, we're just gonna ask them. Typically, people that are dealing with invasives and know they got invasives, typically will approach and say, hey, I need to cut down. One reason they're more conscientious because they realize that's an invasive tree, I need to get rid of it. I wouldn't cut it down if it's oak. And so typically, people will come in and say, I need to remove these 10 tree of heaven. What do I need to do? I might plant 10 trees back. We'll approve a plan for you to do that, and that's all we do. Like, it's real, those are the easiest ones, honestly, to deal with. Those are the easiest customers because they're knowledgeable of what they're looking at. They're conscientious about the environment, they're conscientious about replanting and their neighbors.
I like the never, ever again.
Okay.
Because I should have learned my lesson.
Yeah, that's fine.
If you
And
think
it-
about it that way, get your hand slapped, you learn. You can play dumb one time.
Right.
And not knowledgeable, I won't say dumb, you weren't aware of the situation, you could do it one time, then that's it.
Yeah, and I think it also addresses
Chances
Stephanie's
over
One
situation.
tree instead of the whole.
It addresses,
Whole
somebody
forest.
needs to cut a tree for whatever reason, and then their neighbor turns them in, then we're not dealing with $1,000-$1,500 fine with somebody that is elderly. It's always been this way, and there's some radical rule changes in the past 2 or 3 years, and we're catching them flat-footed, and it's not being sensitive to them, so, okay.
Right.
All right, so I'll let y'all try to, anybody want to put that in a motion for me, since I can make the motion and vote?
Anybody feel up to doing it?
And so I guess so you move to approve the proposed text amendment with the exception of accessory dwelling units, subject to the following condition that an allowance is made for tree removal up to 500 square feet on existing developed lots, a one-time 500 square foot exception for existing developed lots. Does that capture the one that you're wanting? Because we're not doing ADUs.
And the
And
public
pub-
engagement.
And public engagement is for all affected neighborhoods in steep slope.
That was a very good motion, Scott.
Thank you.
Can we hear that again, Scott?
Do we have,
All in favor?
do we have a
Can you
second?
find this reasonable, right? Keep reading, reasonable?
Do we have a second?
Second.
And find that it is reasonable, is in the public interest, is consistent with the Town of Woodfin Comprehensive Plan, and meets the development needs of the community in that the request provides additional clarity and predictability to development requirements, thereby supporting economic development, and ensures that the town's planning, zoning, and permitting processes facilitate sustained and positive development and support the needs of business and industry, preserve and enhance Woodfin's open space, natural environment, and community character.
Okay.
I second.
It's your open space.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second.
Okay.
Let's, any questions on the motion?
So the
Okay.
motion has removed ADU, added the additional text to steep slope,
Allows.
and, you know, upholds all those. Well done.
Okay. Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is approved.
That's the last item tonight, so if you want to be adjourned.
Any
I
other
motion we're
questions?
adjourned.
I've got a
Okay,
plane to catch tomorrow.
Second.
All right.
Can we please?
motion, meeting adjourned.
Linda, thanks for being here. Let me turn this off.
Thank you, everyone.
If I said that I'm
Oh, my gosh.